10 dispatch. Got emergency traffic.
It was a seemingly ordinary Saturday in Dallas, Texas, until chaos shattered the calm. An urgent call crackled across police radios. There was an active shooter at Methodist Dallas Medical Center. Inside the hospital's mother and child ward, gunfire had erupted between a lone assailant and hospital police. Reports soon confirmed multiple casualties. The situation escalated quickly, with the suspect barricaded inside a room, raising fears of a potential hostage crisis. What unfolded next was a harrowing chapter marked by violence, tragedy, and acts of profound bravery. Among the lives lost that day were Jacqueline Pequot and Katie Annette Flowers, two individuals whose absence is deeply mourned by their families, colleagues, and communities. This account revisits the sequence of events, beginning with the background of the individuals involved. At the center of the incident was a couple whose relationship had spanned nearly 8 years, marked by periods of reconciliation and separation. Their story and its devastating conclusion would soon come into sharp public focus. Nestor Oswaldo Hernandez and Selena Villatoro first crossed paths in 2014. At the time, Hernandez had recently completed a 2-year prison sentence for simple robbery. Their connection was swift, and Villatoro soon became entangled in his troubled lifestyle. Just 1 year later, the pair found themselves arrested and ultimately convicted of aggravated robbery, a crime that shocked the local community. The incident involved a female victim who was bound, blindfolded, and robbed of her vehicle and approximately $3,000 in cash, which she had collected during a fundraising event. Hernandez and Villatoro were apprehended shortly thereafter, still in possession of the stolen car and several of the victim's belongings. Both were reportedly intoxicated at the time, and Villatoro later admitted to having injected heroin earlier that evening. Following their arrests, both pleaded guilty to the charges. Hernandez received an 8-year prison sentence, while Villatoro was sentenced to 5 years. She was released first, with Hernandez following a year later, after serving 6 years on parole. Upon his release, the pair resumed their turbulent relationship, one that would take another dramatic turn when Villatoro became pregnant. During his parole, Nestor Oswaldo Hernandez faced multiple violations. One involved a vehicle accident for which he was found at fault. More seriously, he was caught attempting to tamper with his state-issued ankle monitor. Despite these breaches, he remained on parole, raising questions about oversight and risk assessment within the system. On the morning of his newborn son's birth, Hernandez was granted special permission by his parole officer to visit the hospital. Under Texas law, parolees must obtain clearance to visit another convicted felon, Selena Villatoro in this case. The hospital's police department was also alerted to his scheduled visit. That morning, Hernandez dressed and left for Methodist Dallas Medical Center in his SUV. After getting lost en route, he stopped at a convenience store where he purchased a 22-ounce can of Steel Reserve spiked watermelon malt liquor. When he entered the hospital, he was carrying the open container, but far more concerning was what remained hidden on his person: a concealed .380 caliber Smith & Wesson Guardian pistol. As a convicted felon on active parole, Nestor Oswaldo Hernandez was legally prohibited from possessing a firearm, let alone bringing one into a hospital. Yet he did both without hesitation. Surveillance footage later confirmed that he casually stopped at the nurse's station to use hand sanitizer and retrieve a face mask before proceeding to Selena Villatoro's room. What followed unfolded with alarming speed. Hernandez, visibly intoxicated and increasingly agitated, began arguing with Villatoro, who had only recently given birth. The confrontation escalated violently. Without warning, he struck her multiple times across the head and neck with the butt of his pistol. Moments later, healthcare worker Jackie Pequot entered the room as part of her routine rounds to check on new mothers and their infants. A single gunshot rang out, muffled by the room's heavy door. Just outside in the hallway, Sergeant Robert Rangel was preparing to take a report from another family regarding missing personal items. His body-worn camera had already been activated per standard procedure. As the gunshot echoed, Rangel turned toward the sound, only to find chaos erupting.
What happened?
Hey, watch out, man, watch out!
110 dispatch. Got emergency traffic. 1030, a man with a gun up here.
Hernandez, now panicked, appeared to make a desperate attempt to flee the scene. Sergeant Robert Rangel fires a single, precise shot, striking Nestor Hernandez in the leg, but the situation remains far from resolved.
All I could see was a black pistol.
You see it right now?
No. He walked in the room. He was coming out. I believe he had the gun in his hand. I shot one time and he went back in the room.
Rangel is acutely aware that the room still contains innocent people, including new mothers, newborns, and medical staff. Just moments earlier, a nurse had passed him and now lies gravely injured. Every decision carries enormous weight. Rangel knows he must de-escalate the situation, delay further violence, and keep the shooter focused on anything but opening fire again.
Okay, listen, we can work this out, partner, okay? All I want to do is just get the people outside, please.
Thanks to Rangel's immediate call to dispatch alongside numerous 911 calls from within the hospital, law enforcement response is swift. Within minutes, more than a dozen officers arrive and begin ascending to the 4th floor of Schenkel Tower.
Everybody Shut up. Thank you.
Bravo for 40, running 4th floor. Hey, where did you hear the shootings?
Bravo for 40, repeat, you're breaking up.
Stand by. ¿A dónde? ¿A dónde?
Allá para aquel lado. Allá para aquel lado.
Hey, where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at?
It's right there. Come on, right here.
Where?
That way, that way, that way, that way.
Bravo for 40, I'm gonna need a shield on 4th floor. Bravo for 40, does anybody have a 40 millimeter?
We don't need a shield.
Yeah, and a shield.
Where's the shield?
Hey, is he up there? Do you have eyes on him?
Use cover.
Hey, do we have eyes on that guy?
Walk out with your hands up. Walk out with your hands up. Move up.
Hey, flat out. Hey, go to the right hand side. All of, hey, this unit needs to come to the right.
Keep coming to the hallway.
Hey, get some cover.
We got a funnel here.
Hey, does this wrap around? Does it wrap around?
Where the critical scene is unfolding. Their objective is clear: flank Hernandez and neutralize the threat. But the hospital's layout, designed with patient privacy and medical efficiency in mind, presents a significant challenge. The architecture offers only one point of access to the room where the suspect is barricaded. There is no back entrance, no alternate route. Adrenaline surges as the officers realize what must be done. The breaching team readies itself at the threshold, knowing that once they enter, they will have mere seconds to act and prevent further bloodshed.
All right. You see where that sergeant's at? I don't know if you can keep an eye on her. Who has the 40 mil? Hey, stand by.
Leave the slammer.
Hey,
Leave the slammer. Stay light. We'll call it up. We'll call up the slammer if we need it. Hey, shield coming up, guys. Hey, we got a shield coming up. Hands up. Slow it down, guys.
slow down.
Shield's up.
Hey, Sarge, get out of the way.
Sarge, come here.
Do you see him?
He's falling down past her.
Okay, get the female out first.
Female, get the lady out.
Get the female out.
Come out. Arrest team. I'll be arrest team.
Come out of the room right now. Come out of the room.
Get gloves on. Let's go.
Keep your hands where we can see them. Come out of the room.
Come on. All right. Keep your hands by your sides.
Okay, I'm moving in. Hey, is this the...
Can you move, ma'am?
You got gloves? I got gloves.
Let's move in. Here are my cuffs. Cuff the guy first. All right, guys. Ready? Rifles move past. Rifle move past them. Watch a step.
Hey, does this room connect? No, it does not. I need one nurse. One nurse. They're all out. Okay, at least we need a surgeon or something, okay? Bravo 440, we have the suspect in custody. Start PES and start homicide as well.
Coming out, guys. Coming out. Hey, get him down. Hey, who got a...
Both Nestor Hernandez and the newborn child are extracted from the hospital room alive. Miraculously, the infant is unharmed.
Hold on, let's get him out first. Stand by.
Yeah, nurse. Come out, guys. Come out.
Hey, whose car is he going to be placed in? Okay. Hey.
Hey, which leg, bro? Yeah, I'm already on it.
Bravo 440, we're going to need to shut down the entire fourth floor and labor and delivery. Officers at the entrance of the fourth floor.
Up top, all the way up top.
Moving this out of the way so they can get to them.
Hey, officer down kit. Somebody got officer down kit?
Yeah, I got one.
Here. Hey, do me a favor. Let's secure this.
What do y'all need? Somebody with shears. We need shears.
I just want to confirm it's suspect in custody. Suspect in custody at 11:20.
Krauss, you're making the calls?
In the chaotic aftermath, medical personnel raced to stabilize the scene, ensuring the safety of the child, attending to the mother's injuries, and rushing Hernandez into emergency surgery. Regardless of the violence he had just unleashed, the medical team adheres to their oath. They fight to save his life. But the weight of the tragedy is palpable. 2 healthcare workers have fallen. Jacqueline Jackie Pequot lies dead inside the room, and despite all efforts, Katie Annette Flowers could not be saved from her fatal wound. The loss hangs heavily over every staff member on the floor. Meanwhile, law enforcement begins the painstaking task of securing the crime scene. Officers work to protect evidence, while hospital staff relocate patients and families who had been trapped during the shooting and lockdown. Downstairs, entrances are sealed, and the entire facility shifts into full emergency mode. Doctors trained in trauma and critical care are summoned from across the hospital. The emergency department is filled not just with medical professionals, but also with officers from the hospital's police unit and the Dallas Police Department. Together, they form a wall of protection, determined that no more lives will be lost on what has become one of the darkest days the hospital has ever seen. Nestor Hernandez is rushed into surgery for his gunshot wound as the building remains in a state of high alert.
All right, clean up one foot, pressure back. Do what we can.
Come on!
Hey, stop! Yes, because you lost hold. Stop. You're okay, thank you. I have your phone in my pocket. Hey, got NSR alarm. Thank you.
Can't put the wire.
I need that. No, I'm fine with that.
Back upstairs, homicide detectives arrive on the scene, followed closely by forensic teams. Their task is immense: to meticulously document every detail, preserve critical evidence, and protect the dignity of the victims amidst the chaos. Every movement, every measurement, and every photograph taken may one day be scrutinized in a courtroom. A single oversight could jeopardize the integrity of the case. Eventually, the most urgent phase of the crisis draws to a close, at least for the moment. Police officers return to their posts or begin the process of writing incident reports. Hospital staff, though shaken, resume their duties, tending not only to the innocent, but also to the man responsible for taking 2 of their colleagues' lives. And beyond the hospital walls, the city of Dallas begins to learn the full weight of what transpired within one of its most trusted institutions. The families of Jacqueline Pequot and Katie Annette Flowers are notified. The devastating news brings with it unimaginable grief for loved ones who served their community with compassion and whose lives were cut short in the very place dedicated to healing. Nestor Hernandez remains at Methodist Hospital for 4 days as he recovers from the gunshot wound to his leg. Under constant guard, he is eventually transferred to a correctional facility to await trial. Dressed in a hospital gown and using a walker, he is returned to custody. Nearly 2 years would pass before he would finally stand trial for the events of that tragic day. At trial, Selena Villatoro took the stand alongside Sergeant Robert Rangel, who by that time had been formally honored by the state of Texas for his courage and composure during the shooting. Villatoro was asked to recount Hernandez's behavior when he entered the hospital room that day.
I thought he was just drunk. That's why he was like being sentimental. Like I didn't really think nothing of it.
Did he appear to you to be drunk or intoxicated at that time?
Oh, yes, sir.
What was it about him that made you feel like he was intoxicated?
I mean, just the way he was talking. Just, he was crying, talking to him.
She testified that when Hernandez consumed alcohol, he often became emotional, sentimental, even tearful. But on this occasion, his demeanor shifted rapidly. What began as sorrow quickly turned to anger and jealousy.
I guess he gets done talking to them. I think I hear like the doors like from the closets opening. Like he's like opening the closet door, slamming them, and then next thing I know he like throws the little sliding like desk that they have right there. He throws it and then he like hits me in my head with the gun, and he was telling me like just I don't know, just I think he told me like who's here or something like that.
According to her testimony, a confrontation was triggered after she accidentally knocked over his beer, spilling it across the floor. Hernandez erupted. As his rage intensified, she instinctively pulled the hospital sheet over her head in fear.
So he indicated that you had the sheet over your head and he began to hit you in the head with the gun. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you know when he had entered the hospital and specifically into your room that he had a gun at that point?
No, sir.
Did you see where he pulled the gun from?
No, sir.
Okay. You just felt him hitting you with the gun?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall how many times he struck you with the gun?
I think the first time was just once.
Okay.
Just once.
Is he making any statements while this is happening? Is he saying anything to you?
I think he was just like saying like that he had told me to stop playing with him, and he was just telling me stuff like that we're gonna die today.
Villatoro sustained a laceration to her head from being struck multiple times with the pistol, along with visible bruising to her neck. The weapon, a small, lightweight .380 caliber pistol, was easily concealed, and in this instance likely contributed to the relatively limited physical trauma she suffered during the assault. Nonetheless, the emotional and psychological toll was far more severe.
So just going back to when the defendant is assaulting you with the gun, he's hitting you with the gun, and he's making these statements about killing you all and killing anybody else who comes inside the room. Was the door open or closed at that time? Do you remember?
It was closed.
Okay. And so at some point, did somebody else come inside the room while Nestor has the gun?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Who was that?
One of the nurses, I think she was supposed to come in and check on me or something.
Okay.
She came in and that's when Nestor walked up and went behind her and I shot her.
Okay.
Jacqueline Pequot fell backward the moment the bullet struck her. Death came almost instantly. It's likely she never even realized she was in danger. Her entrance into the room was routine, just part of her daily rounds checking on new mothers and their babies. She had no reason to expect the violence that waited on the other side of the door. The court would later hear Nestor Hernandez's version of events. He claimed he had come to the hospital at Selena Villatoro's request to sign the birth certificate of their newborn. According to him, he brought the pistol with the intention of selling it later that day, a statement that, if true, only deepened the recklessness of his actions.
Tell the jury what happened once you got inside that room that changed the whole situation. Could you tell them what took place?
Okay, well, I walked in. My son, he was asleep in the bassinet. I went in there, rubbed his belly. I was like, hey, little man. And so I went and I walked into the restroom. I used the restroom. I walked out. I proceeded to walk out. I started looking for the gun, right? I started looking for the gun. She was like, what you looking for? I said, the gun. And she was like, why? And I said, I got it sold. I said, I talked to dude last night. He wanted to buy it. And so she's like, all right. So I'm on my phone also, you know what I'm saying? Like she said, she said sentimental. I don't want to sound sentimental. I'm more expressionate or something. I like telling people that, I love them and stuff. I'll drink a little bit or do some drugs. I'm like, hey man, I love you, man. I'm glad you're in my life type of thing. You got the aggressive people and then you got the lovers, I guess, or whatever. And so.
So when you're sitting there having this conversation, could you tell the jury what it was that made her start pulling the blanket over and refusing to talk to you?
I don't recall her putting the blanket over her head.
You don't recall her pulling the blanket over her head?
No,
What do you recall happening when you were having this conversation with her?
I ended up sitting down, and I was like, man, get the gun and stuff. And so I was like, so I'm about to sign this birth certificate and leave. And so I'm texting my brother. My brother called me. I talked to him briefly, my nieces and stuff. We started talking. She tried to talk to me. I was like, shut the fuck up, don't talk to me, you know what I'm saying, woo woo. And she's like, oh no, she's like, man, you're drinking and woo woo woo. And I was like, I don't want to hear it, man. I was like, I ain't been drinking like that. And she's like, nah, you drinking, woo woo. And I was like, man, shut up. I was like, don't even talk to me. She was like, nah, you're not supposed to be in here drinking, woo. I was like, don't nobody even know this is a beer. And it looks like a Arizona or something. And she's like, nah, man. She's like, man, they're gonna come in here and see and whatever. And so I was like, bro, I don't even talk to me, bro. I said, yeah, you really nasty. And she was like, what you mean nasty? I said, yeah, you really nasty, you know what I'm saying? And she was like, well, and I said, man, my shit hurt, bro. I'm just signing this birth certificate and I'm finna leave. I said, man.
He went on to say he suspected Selena had been unfaithful. In his words, he believed someone might have been hiding in the hospital room. He accused her of infidelity, saying he had contracted a sexually transmitted disease and was convinced it had come from her.
And so she's like, nah, man. She's like, I ain't fucking nobody and da-da-da. And so she gets on her phone, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, you need to tell whoever you been fucking with that you got that shit, you passing out that shit. And she was...
So what are you talking about?
I never had an STD before that. So, I mean, I knew it was something wrong. I didn't know exactly what it was.
Well,
but it was...
You knew something wrong?
When I urinate, it hurts, yeah.
So you're talking about her messing with somebody else, telling her that she needs to tell people that she's probably giving them STDs too?
Yeah, I don't know, because she ended up getting on the phone. I was like, you need to be calling them people and letting them know you passing out that shit.
And what happened as a result of this conversation?
You said what happened to the result?
Tell me what happened next after y'all are having this conversation.
The nurse, she walks in. So she walks in, and Selena, she gets up and she's like, hey, I need to use the restroom. So when she gets up, I get up with her.
His testimony revealed a man more concerned with blame than accountability, a pattern that only became more pronounced as the trial continued.
Are you talking about the woman that ended up getting shot?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you guys are having this conversation, it's going on. Up to that point in time, have you ever threatened that you were going to kill Selena? Or
No, sir. No, sir.
did you ever threaten to Selena that you were going to kill anybody coming in that room?
No.
Did you have any intention of harming anybody?
No, I didn't.
Tell the jury what happened, and you just described how you got to the point where the nurse came in the room, Selena wants to go to the restroom. Tell the jury what happened next.
Well, she gets up and I get up with her, and she's walking. No, when the nurse came in, she said, good afternoon or good evening, and I said it back. And Selena gets up and she's like, I need to use the restroom. She had told the nurse, I need to use the restroom, but I got up with her. And so I was like, why you need to go to the restroom with your phone? And she's like, because she, and then the nurse asked, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah, everything's okay. And then she said, no, it's not. She's like, I don't want him here. This ain't even his baby. So I slapped her. So when I slapped her, the nurse was like, oh. And so then Selena hit me, and we got into like, whenever I got up, I had the pistol on me too. You know what I'm saying? I had. She ended up, before that, Selena had handed me the pistol. And so I had the pistol right here. It's a little pistol. So when I got up holding it too. And she hit me, and so, I kind of like, I had the pistol in my hand. I don't think the nurse knew I had the pistol in my hand. And so we got into like a little brawl or whatever, and that's when I hit her. I ended up hitting her with the pistol. And that's when the nurse, she was like, stop. She got in between us. And my shirt, the black shirt that I had on, it was already kind of like over me. It was already like, 'cause she was like putting on the shirt too. And so the gun went off. That's what.
And who was pulling on your shirt?
Selena. Okay. But the nurse tried to stop the fight. She got in between us, and she yelled, stop. She's like, stop. And next you know, the gun went off. And we stopped. Everything slowed down. I was kind of confused for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And the first thing that Selena said, she was like, "What did you do?" And I was like, "No, man, it's your fault. This is your fault." You know, because the nurse, she was kind of like leaning forward, and then she ended up falling back. Boom.
Did you intentionally shoot this nurse? Or?
No.
When questioned about Jacqueline Pequot's death, Hernandez claimed he never intended to shoot her. He insisted the gun had gone off accidentally and that she was never a target. But the evidence told another story. And when asked to explain the subsequent shooting of nurse Katie Annette Flowers, his answers became more evasive. Whether he saw her in the hallway or not, his bullets found her, fatally wounding a nurse who had rushed to respond, trying to help.
I hate that I'm kind of panicking, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, shit. And so Selena, she said, get help. And so I turned around. When I turned around, I walked out the door. I tried to walk out the door. I felt the heat just through my leg. Boom. And I stepped back. I jumped back into the room, and I looked down, and I was like, they shot me.
In the end, Nestor Hernandez's testimony did more than recount events. It revealed character. A man who deflected blame, denied responsibility, and minimized the irreversible damage he had caused. And in doing so, he showed the court exactly who he was.
By now, Selena has the baby. She had grabbed the baby at this time, and she's holding the baby. And I'm like, hey, give me the baby, give me the baby. And she was like, no, no. And I'm like, give me the baby, man. I was like, man, give me the baby, man. Give me the baby. Put him in the crib. Because the crib, the bassinet, is by the restroom. And so I'm thinking, I was like, man, look, they're about to come in here and start shooting, man. They're about to shoot us. And she's like, no, no, no. I wanted to put him in the bassinet and put him by the restroom because I was like, man, they about to come in. They already shot me. They about to come in here and start shooting.
What happened at that point in time?
I started feeling the pain. At first I didn't feel the pain, but now I'm feeling it. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, And so I went around the bed. I don't know if I sat down in the closet or I sat down in front of the closet. And I was like, shit. And Selena's like, she steady screaming. And she's like, what the fuck? This lady, she right there. I was like, man, shut up. I was like, shut up. So I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I said, man, I'm about to just go out there. I'm just let them kill me, man. I said, all right. And she was like, what? I was like, I'm not going back. And I was like, I'm not finna spend the rest of my life in jail.
And yet, in the end, Nestor Hernandez did not attempt to flee. He surrendered. But the question lingered, would he have used his own child as a shield if given the chance? Fortunately, authorities acted before the situation could escalate further. Officers swarmed into the hospital room, swiftly overpowering and disarming him. Selena Villatoro remained inside, screaming in shock and pain. Nearby, the baby's bassinet stood splattered with blood, a haunting image of innocence caught in the heart of violence. On the witness stand, Sergeant Robert Rangel gave his account of the events. He had been on the 4th floor that morning on an unrelated assignment, just 2 doors away from the room where the shooting erupted. When the first shot rang out, he recalled, it sounded like a light bulb had burst, a quick, sharp noise that didn't immediately raise alarm. But when 2 more gunshots blasted through the door, there was no mistaking the gravity of the situation. Rangel watched as a wounded nurse staggered past him, leaving a trail of blood on the polished hospital floor. He moved into position, seeking the best possible angle with minimal cover, fully aware of the danger. Moments later, Hernandez emerged from the room and the standoff escalated.
At that point, it's kind of like time had really slowed down. I mean, probably hadn't, but at that time I had already made a decision within myself that a nurse had been shot, and I only knew about one at that time. And I told myself, I'm the only one up here right now. I would glance to see if McCrail or Jaime Hinojosa had made their way up to the floor, but at that point they hadn't. So my mind is telling me, if he comes out of the room empty-handed, I'm going to tell him to, keep his hands up and get up on the floor. And I told myself, if he came out with a pistol, I only had one option, and that was to make sure that he didn't get out past the room with a gun.
Okay, so what did you do?
When I saw him, and he was looking out of the room, he had the pistol, and I fired one time at his leg.
Why did you fire at that time?
Because I fired at that time because I feared for my life. I feared that if he came out of the room, that he was going to try to shoot more people.
The sergeant's presence and actions would become pivotal in preventing even greater loss of life that day. Had Sergeant Robert Rangel not been there or failed to act, Nestor Hernandez might have shot his way out of the hospital, taking even more lives. Rangel's swift response likely prevented further tragedy. In the end, Hernandez's attempts to deny responsibility were unconvincing. A jury found him guilty of 2 counts of capital murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At sentencing, loved ones of Jacqueline Pequot and Katie Annette Flowers gave emotional statements, honoring the lives of the two women and mourning the deep loss their deaths left behind.
Annette devoted her life to taking care of people, just like Jackie did. Everyone in healthcare does. We vow to serve others, even scum like you. After you wreaked havoc that day and stole two beautiful souls who undoubtedly were better human beings and more deserving of life than you will ever be, they still saved your life. I hope every day for the rest of your miserable life, you are haunted by their names, faces, and the legacy that you cut short. Although you don't care about any of that, you've shown no remorse for anything.
On that tragic day, Nestor Hernandez's actions shattered numerous lives. The two women he killed, Jacqueline Pequot and Katie Annette Flowers, were not only dedicated professionals but beloved mothers, colleagues, and friends. Their loss reverberated through families, workplaces, and the broader Dallas community. The impact extended far beyond the immediate victims. Selena Villatoro will carry the trauma of that day for the rest of her life, and the couple's newborn son enters the world under the shadow of violence and loss. As for Hernandez himself, his fate is sealed. Whether he ruined his own life is a question few will spend time pondering. Jacqueline Pequot, 45, served in the hospital's social services department. She held a master's degree in social work from the University of Texas at Arlington and had emigrated from Ghana more than 2 decades earlier, maintaining close ties to her family abroad. She is survived by her son. Annette Flowers, 63, was a registered nurse with a 40-year career dedicated to caring for mothers and newborns. A single mother of 4 and grandmother to 4 more, she had spent her life bringing others into the world, only to have her own taken in a place meant for healing. What could have been done differently to prevent a convicted felon from bringing a gun into a hospital? Do you believe justice was truly served in this case? Or is the system still failing victims and their families? If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share your thoughts below. We cover true crime stories that demand to be told. Your voice matters.
Just a few inches, right? Shoe.
Yep, you can see. I think it is. There's the I think it's the boot, and that's the bottom sole of it.
Yep. Grab it and pull and see if a foot falls out.
Okay.
This is getting very scientific. 7 years or more ago, I'm not going to lose anything.
Oh, check that. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Switch wire.
Yep. 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 Okay. Well, let's get out.
On May 1, 2023, law enforcement officers in New Mexico responded to a call reporting a possible homicide. Unbeknownst to them, they were about to come face to face with the very individual responsible for the crime.
What's going on, man?
I just wanted to refer to my murder that I did a long time ago.
Okay, a long time ago?
Yeah.
Or today?
A long time ago.
What is that?
I buried him in his house.
Where at?
Right on 5th Street.
What's the address?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, sir.
How'd you get over here? You walked?
Yeah.
This is a long time ago, is what he's saying.
I'm just tired of covering it up already.
You try to cover it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm tired of living with my wife, sir.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Okay. This is him. You doing okay? You're all sweaty. Did you run here? Or?
No, I drank.
Oh, you drank all that water right there?
No.
Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, go ahead. Would you show me where it's at?
What?
If I took you, would you be willing to show me where it's at?
Do I have to go there right now?
Well, that way we know where the house is. Okay. I'll let you finish your thing.
Let's go.
Okay. You don't want to finish it? You're good there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways.
All right, just hang on, okay? Relax. Just say name. Call 911.
I did.
You did? Yeah, we already got this.
This guy had the house.
Let me talk with this guy. Hang on here. So he's saying. Yeah. He's saying he killed somebody a long while ago and he buried the house, some house on 5th Street. That's what he's like. So I asked him if he's willing to show me where the house is. He's like, yeah, I'm willing to show you where the house is. So that's all we got right now. He doesn't know the address. A long time ago. I'm gonna take him up there.
What year?
Huh?
What year?
I haven't figured it out yet. What year was this at? You don't remember? Okay.
It's been so long.
It's been a long time. Okay, we're gonna go all the way around over here. Okay, my car's way over there, so we're gonna walk this way. Yep.
Thank you guys for coming.
Absolutely. Is it on East 5th or West 5th?
East 5th.
East side? Okay. Do you have anything on your person besides your switchers? You mind if I check you?
I don't give a
Okay. Your phone? Okay. I'm just gonna hold on to these, okay? Have a seat for me, brother.
Okay, will you give that stuff back to
that guy?
No, they belong to my sister. She lives right there down the street.
Okay.
I left the house.
Okay. All right, we'll address it. Have a seat, okay? I'm gonna roll the window down for you. So what's gonna happen, okay? We're gonna go to the police department, okay? We're gonna find out some more information, okay? The detectives are gonna talk with you about more information with it, okay? And then we'll address it from there, okay? All right, so hang on, okay? You listen to any specific music or anything? Any music you want to listen to at all? Gospel? Okay.
Listen to Drake or what?
Yeah. You want to listen to Drake?
Yeah, I don't care.
All right.
Never thoughts of suicide, I'm too alive.
I'm sorry?
What's your name?
My name's Gio.
Gio?
Gio. Like,
Gio?
Yeah, like Giovanni?
Yeah, that's tight.
Yeah. That's my name, man. I'll talk with you a little bit more when we get there, okay? The detectives will talk with you even more than me. Just hang on, all right? I can, but because you're in the back of the car, I have to read you something for me to be speaking to you. It's all like legal nuances, kind of. So just hang on, let me get there, okay? And we'll talk a little bit, okay? Hold on.
Hey, I'm too stressed out, man.
All good, hold on. Let me get there, okay? And we'll talk, hold on.
Yeah. At a stage in a book.
Stand up for me, man.
It hurts, dude.
What hurts?
My handcuffs.
Okay, we're gonna get them off here right now. We're gonna go this way. Just stand right here and face this wall real quick. Which arm is hurting?
Whole body, bro.
Your whole body?
Yeah, I took a bunch of blood pressure pills and everything.
You took some or you take some?
I took some.
Okay.
And I drank. I shouldn't have drank.
Okay, have a seat. Hold on.
But I didn't know how to confess to him.
Okay, have a seat real quick.
Alright.
Now, when you say you took all this stuff, when was this? A little bit ago? When you took the pills and the alcohol?
Yeah, I needed my pills.
When was this that you took them? Was it earlier this morning?
Yeah, and I wanted to drink some alcohol.
Okay.
Because I wanted to confess.
How many blood pressure pills did you take?
I did 4.
How many did you take?
All 4 of them.
Okay. Are you thirsty at all, like water?
Yeah, sure, please.
Alright, let me go get you a cup, okay? Hang on. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do, okay? I'm gonna unhandcuff you from here, okay? And then I'm gonna put them in the front, okay? And then I'm gonna let you carry your water and we're gonna take the detectives because they're gonna talk with you more, okay? Now we're gonna do them in the front.
Cool.
Yep, like that. Yep.
Alright. Thank you.
And that way I'll let you be able to hold your water. Okay.
Hey, bless yourself, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jesus Christ.
You wanna grab your water right here?
Hey, or all I did for everything was nothing.
Okay. We're gonna go up these stairs that are right here, so if you just, yeah.
Thank you guys for picking me up so quick.
Absolutely.
I was tripping out, dude. Oh man, I'm weak.
Weak?
Yeah, I'm gonna climb the stairs.
Huh? Which room do you want?
What's up?
Left or right room?
Yeah, it's good.
Alright, we're just gonna go straight ahead, okay? Just have a seat in that chair in the corner right there. This one. The other one. That one. All right. Hang on, they're gonna be with you right now. Hold on.
Following an initial interview, detectives obtained preliminary information from the suspect and issued a Miranda warning. With cooperation secured, the suspect agreed to lead investigators to the location where the victim's body had been buried.
I just gotta do something real quick with those handcuffs. You're fine. Relax. Want your water?
Yeah, please.
Go ahead, you grab it. Go ahead. Good.
Can I smoke that? Hey, it's my last.
We'll do it over there, okay?
Oh, wait. All right.
But I can't do it in my cop car, so grab your water.
Oh, you don't have a lighter, huh?
I have lighter in my cop car, though.
All right, cool.
Grab your water.
Hey, just my last cigarette and that's it.
Alrighty. I got you. You can bring it with you if you want it. Alrighty. We're gonna go down to the right and down the stairs again, okay?
Okay.
We're gonna go on this side, okay? Go ahead and see. Alright.
It's right here. The next house.
This white one?
This white one here?
Yeah. I buried him in that side place right here. This side little door right here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I buried him right there.
Okay.
Like in the little building?
Yes, sir. Why didn't they smell it?
I'm sorry?
Why didn't they smell his body in there?
I don't know. Hang on, okay? Saying pretty much all the way back is where you buried him.
Inside the shed?
Yeah, inside this little shed
Inside
thing.
of it?
What are you saying?
A search warrant was promptly obtained for the property in question, and a methodical excavation began.
Just a few inches, right?
Shoe? Yep, you can see. I think it is. There's the, like, I think it's the boot and that's the bottom sole of it.
Yep. Grab it and pull and see if a foot falls out.
Okay.
This is getting very scientific.
7 years or more ago, I'm not going to lose anything. That's the
Oh,
sole of
check that. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Switch wire.
Yep. 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 Okay. Well, let's get out.
Once human remains were recovered confirming the suspect's claims, detectives initiated a formal one-on-one interrogation to gather further details.
First.
You like onions? I got them without because I hate onions. I know how some people are. You either hate them or you love them. Have you been here for a little while at the police department? Mm-hmm. Is that good? Is the hamburger good? It's McDonald's, but it is what it is, right? So they already read you your Miranda rights. You're aware of all that stuff. Yeah. I'm gonna let you know again, okay? It's something that we have to do. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say cannot be used against you in the court of law. Do you understand all that? Okay. What time did you call the police department?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me what happened, man.
I killed somebody a long time ago.
Okay. Why? What happened?
I don't know, sir.
I've been told his name is Bill, but it's really William, right?
I don't know.
You were living with him at the time? Okay. Back then, you guys had some kind of issue. Was it about a wallet? No? Do you remember what happened? Why?
I just remember I just needed to confess. That was it.
Okay. How did you do it? Do you not remember or you just don't want to say it?
I just don't want to talk anymore.
Well, it's off your shoulders now, man.
Thank you for the prayer.
You're welcome. You're welcome, no problem. You know, I wasn't around back then, 2009. So, you know, my own curiosity is, you know, I want to know. And, you know, I can read the reports from back then, and that's why I said the wallet thing, because that's what we were told. I know he was an older guy. I know that you were living with him, right? You guys were roommates. He owned the place, right?
I don't know.
But he allowed you to stay there, like you were kind of renting. Did you pay him money to live there, or?
I don't remember.
He just, okay, but you guys were living together. All right. What happened, man?
I don't know.
Do I look familiar to you? No? You look real familiar to me. I feel like we talked before. Maybe I've just seen you around town. Did you use a gun?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, how about this one? Why don't you tell me why you decided to come forward?
Because my heart hurts.
It's been eating at you for a while?
Yeah.
I know this is probably a big hard decision you had to make. You've been thinking about it for a while?
Every day.
Yeah, I've never been in that position, but I can imagine how hard that decision was to step up and...
At least nobody doesn't have to worry anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine his family. You know, he was an older guy, but, you know, his family never knew what happened. And that's kind of where I stand, because I want to be able to tell them, you know, what happened.
Tell them that he was a good man and I should have did what I did. You know?
Okay. Yeah, it was his son is the one that reported it to us back then about not being able to get a hold of his dad.
Why didn't anybody say anything after that? Why didn't everybody just let it slide?
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Okay. The cops talked to you back then, I assume?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Give me little details, Tony. What happened?
Do I have to speak or what?
No, you don't have to, man. I'm just talking to you. You don't have to tell me anything. You don't. You don't. I just want to know the story. I'm sure the family wants to know the story. You know, things...
He was always good to me, and I took his life for no reason. And I don't have an excuse.
What did you
A lot of people have an excuse. I don't have one.
What did you use to kill him?
I don't remember.
Do you remember if it was some type of weapon or your hands?
I don't remember. All I know is that I buried him and I shouldn't have.
One of the officers told me that you had said it was some type of sharp object. Maybe like a knife or a screwdriver or something.
I don't remember.
Okay. And again, you don't have to talk to me, but please don't lie, because there's no reason to lie anymore, right?
I killed him with a screwdriver.
Okay. And is that screwdriver around anywhere?
No.
Okay. Because it's been, I mean, I know it's been a long time.
Yeah.
You got family in town here?
Yeah. That's why I wanted to confess, for they don't, you know, nothing happens to them. It was my fault for my sin, you know. Nobody else should suffer except this.
Your parents still around?
No.
No. Okay. So no reason. All right. So I kind of went back there and looked at it. There's some cross members on the floor. Were those there when you put them in there?
No.
Okay, so it was just an open space at the time?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
It was in what?
Like cross members, you know, like if you were to pull up the floor, there's like joists, like braces.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm talking about? Like that go diagonal that the floor sits on. Those weren't there?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you have to dismember his body to get him in there, or did you just put him in there whole?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
Well, see,
Anyway, he's already confessed, man.
no, well, see, I need to know this information because I'm going to go and dig him up, right? And
I thought they already dug him up.
No. We went over there and looked at it. We haven't even got started yet.
Are they going to take me to jail?
It's a process. I don't know, man. I don't know. We have to talk to the district attorney's office.
So I'm going to be stuck here all night or what?
No, not all night. No, but we got to talk to the DAs. They're the ones that ultimately make the decision. But those cross members, you know, like, there would be no way to put him in the ground without dismembering him. That's just my curiosity is what I'm facing. Okay. All right. Is there anything that you think I should know that you want to tell me before I take off?
Everybody knows everything already.
Okay. All right. I'll come back in a little bit, Tony, and let you know what's going to happen, okay?
Okay.
All right. I hope these were decent.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
The suspect was identified as 37-year-old Tony Peralta of Roswell, New Mexico. During the course of the investigation, Peralta confessed to the murder of William Bill Blodgett, a man who had been reported missing since December 2008. Tony Peralta had been living as a tenant in the home of William Bill Blodgett when tensions escalated over accusations of theft. These allegations ultimately prompted Blodgett to initiate eviction proceedings against Peralta. While Peralta never explicitly stated that the eviction attempt was the motive for the killing, investigators and legal experts widely believe it played a central role in the crime. Following his confession, Peralta was formally charged with first-degree murder. In a surprising legal turn, he initially entered a not guilty plea through his public defender, Ray Connolly, despite openly admitting to the crime and expressing years of guilt. However, he would later reverse course, changing his plea to guilty under a second-degree murder charge. Such shifts in plea are not unusual in the justice system and often reflect the outcome of negotiated plea agreements. By pleading guilty to the reduced charge, Peralta was sentenced to 15 years in prison to be followed by 2 years of supervised parole. He is currently serving his sentence and is scheduled for release in May 2038 at the age of 52. Why do you think Tony Peralta initially pleaded not guilty, even after confessing to the murder? Do you believe a 15-year sentence for second-degree murder was a fair outcome in this case? If this case left you speechless, make sure to subscribe for more chilling true crime breakdowns, and don't forget to drop a comment below. What do you think really pushed Peralta over the edge? As of July 2, 2005, nearly 2 months had passed since 8-year-old Shasta Groney and her 9-year-old brother Dylan vanished from their rural home near Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, setting off a manhunt for a suspected killer who remained at large.
I don't think anything prepared me for the experience in the Groney murder investigation.
It's the type of case that I go home and have nightmares about.
He would pass by a location that clearly children lived there.
They see Shasta playing in the front yard and surveils the house.
He had thought about everything to make sure that he was going to commit the perfect crime.
But at just 8 years old, Shasta outsmarts an obsessed serial killer and makes sure he will never terrorize anyone again.
Shasta had an amazing ability to control him. It was Shasta that orchestrated her own rescue.
The Groney family resided just outside the city, living a modest but close-knit life. Shasta shared the home with her 2 older brothers, Dylan and Slade, her mother Brenda, and Brenda's boyfriend, Mark McKenzie. Following the divorce of her parents when she was just 2 years old, Shasta had grown up in a household that, while financially limited, found strength in the bonds of family and a love for the outdoors.
My mom loved music. We would just dance around the living room, and she always wanted to cook and have food on the table every night when everyone was home, and I helped her cook a lot.
Shasta Groney and her 9-year-old brother Dylan shared an unbreakable bond. Inseparable in both play and spirit, the siblings spent much of their time enjoying the outdoors with their family, camping, fishing, and exploring the natural beauty of their Idaho surroundings.
I've never met anybody in my life that was like him. He was friends with the kids that got picked on, but then he was also super popular. He was my best friend.
But on the morning of May 16, 2005, the Groen family's peaceful world was shattered. Around 6 a.m., Shasta was asleep in her bedroom when she was abruptly awakened by her mother, who appeared panicked and distressed.
She had actually come into the room and said that there's a man here that doesn't want us to be here.
As Shasta followed her into the living room, she was met with a terrifying sight. A man standing inside the home, armed with a shotgun. At first glance, the intruder appeared to be a law enforcement officer, but that illusion quickly dissolved. The man ordered them to lie face down on the floor and began restraining them with zip ties and duct tape. In that moment, it became clear this was not a routine visit from authorities, but the beginning of a nightmare.
My stepdad, Mark, had said, "We don't have money." We were hearing bangs, and then he was screaming and yelling.
One by one, the intruder turned his violence on the adults in the house. Mark McKenzie, Brenda Groney, and 13-year-old Slade Groney were each brutally attacked with a hammer. The savage assault left no room for resistance.
I was in the house with my family members, and I didn't know if they were dead or not.
When he finally turned his attention to the youngest, Shasta and Dylan, his intentions took a darker and more calculated turn.
He grabbed me, picked me up, and took me into the backyard and laid me under the tree next to my brother.
Terrified and confused, the two children had no understanding of why they were being spared or what their captor had planned. As chaos unfolded inside the home, Slade, bloodied and severely injured, managed to stumble outside in a desperate attempt to escape. The man pursued him, striking him repeatedly until Slade collapsed, barely clinging to life.
He was sitting on the picnic table, and he was just, sitting up, and then he just laid down.
With the older members of the household incapacitated, the man forced Shasta and Dylan into his vehicle. As the car pulled away from the only home they had ever known, the siblings could only watch in silent horror, uncertain whether their family members were still alive. Their captor drove nearly 100 miles west, deep into the wilderness of the Lolo National Forest near St. Regis, Montana. There, in a remote campground surrounded by dense forest, he began to reveal the full extent of his horrifying actions.
He grabbed the hammer. He said, "See this hammer? This is the hammer that I murdered your mom and your stepdad and your brother with." And he was like, "They're not alive and you're never going to see them again."
Back at the Groney residence, a neighbor arrived intending to stop by for a casual visit. But upon seeing the unsettling scene outside the home, he immediately contacted authorities.
I went to the door to pay the little kid $10 for mowing the lawn, and there's blood all over the door. Nobody comes through the door.
What law enforcement encountered upon arrival would soon be described as one of the most disturbing crime scenes in the region's history.
I don't think anything prepared me for the experience in the Groney murder investigation.
We have a homicide scene with one adult male, one adult female, and one juvenile male. Our main concern right now are the two children we cannot find.
Inside the house, officers discovered the bodies of 40-year-old Brenda Groney, her boyfriend Mark McKenzie, and 13-year-old Slade Groney. In a final act of strength and love, Slade had managed to drag himself back into the home after the attack. His body was found lying beside his mother's, an image that would haunt investigators for years to come. Conspicuously absent from the scene were the two youngest children, Shasta and Dylan. With no signs of their whereabouts, authorities launched an immediate and intensive search across the property, desperate for any clue that might point to the children's fate. As part of standard protocol in child abduction cases, detectives turned to family members for answers. They contacted the children's biological father, Steve Groney, who revealed he had recently argued with Brenda over custody just days prior to the murders. He also made a televised plea for their safe return, one that, due to its tone and timing, raised suspicion among some members of the public and investigators alike.
I'd like to address my children's abductors or abductor. Please release my children safely. They had nothing to do with any of this.
Initially, suspicion turned toward the children's father, Steve Groney. He was given a polygraph test, and when asked if he knew the whereabouts of his children, the results showed inconsistencies. Though he failed the test, he insisted on his innocence. Investigators later confirmed through computer forensics that he had been home during the murders, ultimately clearing him of involvement. With Shasta and Dylan still missing, fear spread across Coeur d'Alene. An Amber Alert was issued, and the community rallied to help. Thousands of tips poured in, but none led to the children. The scene showed no signs of theft, and the targeted nature of the violence suggested this was no random crime.
The fact that the bodies were so beaten up so badly, it made the crime appear to be a crime of passion.
You begin to think about who could have been so angry at this family to want to inflict such injury on these people.
While the search continued, Shasta and Dylan were trapped in the wilderness with their captor. In the span of hours, they had lost their family and now faced ongoing abuse and isolation with no one to hear their cries for help.
He got really mad, started throwing things. He took more of his anger out on Dylan and was really mean to him.
He would abuse him and then make me watch. And then if I cried, then he would abuse him worse.
One night, the captor escalated his psychological torment. He told Shasta and Dylan that they could return home if they obeyed his commands. As part of his manipulation, he had them write letters to their family, offering a glimmer of hope that rescue might be near.
Dear Dad, I miss you very much, and me and Dylan know what happened to Mom, Mark, and Slade, and we both feel very sorry for them. And we both miss you and Jesse and Vance, and we might see you guys again.
But the letters were never sent. It was a calculated deception designed to deepen their confusion and suffering.
He just wanted us to believe that there was a chance that we would live or that we'd get out safe. I think after a certain amount of time, Dylan had started to lose hope that it was going to turn out good for him.
Meanwhile, investigators were racing against time. With each passing day, the chances of finding the children alive were diminishing. In their search for leads, detectives uncovered that a barbecue had taken place at the Groan home just one day before the murders. A fingerprint found on a door matched Robert Lutner, a man with a criminal history who had attended the gathering. Lutner was reportedly in debt to Brenda and Mark, suggesting a potential motive. Authorities attempted to locate and question him, but he had vanished. Suspicions surrounding Robert Lutner deepened when his parole officer revealed he had left town shortly after the murders. However, upon learning that police wanted to question him, Lutner voluntarily returned.
Somebody's going to turn themselves in that quickly. It's either going to be somebody who's feeling so much remorse for what they have done and they want to confess to it, or it's somebody that is completely innocent and wants to get it off their back.
He was interviewed for hours, denied any involvement, and agreed to take a polygraph test, which he passed. With no evidence linking him to the crime, investigators ruled him out as a suspect. As every promising lead collapsed, Shasta began to understand that their captor had no intention of letting them go. Isolated and tormented, she and Dylan leaned on each other for strength, but as her older brother began to lose hope, Shasta realized she had to remain strong for both of them.
I said, I promise that we're going to make it out alive. That was my way of comforting my brother, just letting him know that we would never stop fighting.
Their ordeal only grew more horrific. The captor began forcing the children to consume drugs and alcohol, using their altered state to recount, in chilling detail, the atrocities he had committed against other children. What he failed to realize, however, was that 8-year-old Shasta was remembering everything, and that her memory would one day help bring him to justice.
He very vividly and in detail described murders of 2 sisters from Seattle, Amija White and Carmen. He would tell us the way that he had done it, where he had placed their bodies. When he had started telling us about the murders, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to pretend like I'm drinking this.
As the days dragged on, Shasta began to understand the depths of their captor's disturbed mind. She recognized that he seemed to feel a twisted sense of attachment to her and decided to use it to her advantage. By pretending to trust him and acting like a friend, she hoped to manipulate his behavior and protect herself and Dylan.
I would ask questions about his life, ask him about his family, and could I meet them one day?
It was a conscious thing, like I need to make him think that I love him or that I want to be here with him.
At first, the tactic appeared to work. The man's demeanor softened slightly, and for a brief time there was a flicker of hope. Then, nearly a month into the abduction, the captor issued a strange challenge. If they could catch a squirrel that kept returning to the campsite, he claimed, they would be allowed to go home. After repeated failed attempts, Dylan finally caught the animal. Believing they had completed the task, the siblings felt a renewed sense of hope as the captor told them to prepare to leave. But once again, it was a cruel deception.
I had just given him a hug, and so I was holding his hand, and I heard a loud bang. And then I felt my brother's hand slip from mine. I couldn't even say anything. I couldn't scream. I couldn't I just didn't even know what to do.
In a devastating turn, the man raised a gun and shot Dylan twice, right in front of Shasta. In an instant, the last anchor in her life was gone. She had lost everything.
He came up to me and was crying. He said it was an accident. He didn't mean to. I didn't know what the first shot was, but I knew that the second time was on purpose. He said that he did it so that Dylan wouldn't have to feel pain.
After witnessing the murder of her brother, Shasta was forced to endure an unthinkable horror. Her captor ordered her to help move Dylan's body onto a tarp, where he then set it on fire. The two siblings had clung to each other for strength throughout their captivity, but now, at just 8 years old, Shasta was left utterly alone to face a nightmare no child should ever endure.
I was just confused, and I remember, I think for about a week I just didn't talk. I couldn't talk. I couldn't say anything. I was just frozen.
6 weeks into the abduction, the captor relocated her to a different campsite. While the first location had been secluded deep in the wilderness, the new site was farther down the mountain, close enough that Shasta could now see people passing nearby. Chained inside a tent, she could do nothing but watch, terrified. Despite being so close to potential help, she remained silent. Her captor's threats were constant and deadly. Any attempt to escape or signal for help would mean certain death. Even as Shasta continued to obey his every demand, the man's behavior grew increasingly erratic. One night, without warning, he decided she had to die.
He was just like, you have the choice to be strangled or you have the choice to be shot like your brother, and that one's going to be quicker. I felt like if I had chose the strangulation, that I might have a chance to talk him out of what he was doing.
The captor wrapped a rope around Shasta's neck and began to pull. After nearly 2 months of terror, and with her family gone, she felt herself slipping, on the edge of giving up.
I kind of remember seeing my mom's face. I heard her voice, and then I started to see white, and then everything kind of came back.
But even in that moment, the memory of her loved ones gave her the strength to keep fighting. Desperate, Shasta acted quickly.
I had worked up enough breath to say, please don't, Jet.
She remembered the man's nickname, Jet, a name he had shared with the children as part of his twisted attempts at familiarity. In a final attempt to survive, she appealed to the fragile emotional bond he believed they shared.
I noticed that when I would use that name with him, it would soften a little bit, it would soften him. And he's like, what did you say? He started crying and he was like, I can't do this.
Through calm words and calculated trust, Shasta managed to convince him to stop. He let go of the rope and allowed her to live, at least for the time being. Incredibly, even after the attempted killing, she continued to build on that false relationship, using his warped attachment to her as a means of staying alive.
Anytime me going home was brought up, I would tell him, no, I don't want to go. I want to stay here with you. And he'd be like, really? You could tell that it was starting to catch him off guard a little bit.
It was July 2nd, 2005, 7 weeks since Shasta Groney and her brother Dylan had been abducted. After weeks of carefully gaining her captor's trust, Shasta finally saw a glimmer of hope.
He basically sat me down and asked if I would be his kid and I would stay with him, that I would call him Dad.
He's like, I want to take you to meet my mom. Would you meet her? And I had said yes.
Her manipulations had worked well enough to convince him to bring her closer to civilization. Now the 8-year-old girl was back near the outskirts of Coeur d'Alene, inching closer to people, closer to the chance of being seen and rescued. But she knew it wasn't enough just to be nearby. She needed to be visible.
And I said, can you take me to where I grew up? I want to show you where I went to school. And I want to show you where my best friend lives. I want to show you all these places that are important to me because you're important to me. And he was like, yeah, of course, I would love to.
Almost 2 months after her disappearance, Shasta persuaded her captor to stop at a convenience store. Inside, she silently prayed that someone would recognize her. A tip eventually reached law enforcement, but only after the store manager reviewed security footage and realized who she was. By then, they were already gone.
I remember just holding on to hope, but still feeling like there wasn't going to be any.
Later, her captor asked if she was hungry. Knowing that a restaurant meant more eyes and more potential for someone to intervene, Shasta said yes. He agreed and drove her to a Denny's restaurant in Coeur d'Alene.
As I was walking in, I noticed that my missing persons poster was right there. There was this guy standing outside and he was with his friends and he nodded his head and I nodded my head and he went up to the counter and made it kind of seem like he was conversating with one of the waitresses, and then I seen her look over at me.
They were my only table at the time, and I immediately recognized her. His entire world revolved around her. She didn't speak without his permission. There was something just not okay.
Waitress Amber Dean had no idea who the man dining with the young girl truly was, but something about the situation felt off. Careful not to raise his suspicions, she kept her demeanor calm and unassuming, all while quietly observing.
I spoke to my manager, said, I think we should probably call Coeur d'Alene PD. I'm pretty positive that's Shasta Groney over there. I'll pay for their meal if I'm wrong. We need to get somebody up here.
Others inside the Denny's restaurant began to notice as well. The girl looked familiar, too familiar. A call was placed to police, and at last, after nearly 2 months of searching, authorities received the alert they had been desperately waiting for.
I've got a little girl here with a tall gentleman, and she looks so much like that Shasta, and we're not sure. I don't know.
Shasta could sense the growing recognition around her, but fear still gripped her. There was no guarantee her captor wouldn't act violently if he sensed trouble.
I remember thinking that he's so smart, and I was like, even if they know that I'm with him, maybe he will have an excuse and they'll just leave, and they won't think that anything was wrong.
Time was running out. The man appeared ready to leave, and if he managed to escape with her again, the consequences could be fatal. The staff and patrons at Denny's quickly mobilized. Amber stalled, pretending to have issues printing the bill in order to keep him seated. Others positioned themselves discreetly near the exits, prepared to block him if he attempted to flee. All eyes were on the door, waiting for law enforcement to arrive before it was too late. At last, police arrived at the Denny's restaurant. An officer gently asked the young girl for her name. When she softly replied, "Shasta," the confirmation sent waves of relief through the room. Officers immediately apprehended the man beside her. For the first time in nearly 2 months, Shasta could finally exhale.
The whole entire restaurant started clapping. Like, they all knew who I was. They all knew that I was a missing person. And like, it was kind of like they all played a factor into my rescue.
Before even leaving the restaurant, Shasta bravely told officers that the man seated with her was responsible for murdering her family and abducting her. He was identified as 42-year-old Joseph Edward Duncan III, a registered Level 3 sex offender. Duncan's history of predatory behavior stretched back decades. His first known offense occurred when he was just 15. More recently, in February 2004, he had been charged with molesting a young boy in Minnesota. After posting $15,000 bail, he fled and became a fugitive. The investigation into the vehicle Duncan had been driving revealed more disturbing evidence. The car was stolen, and inside it, authorities found a shotgun and a cache of video equipment, containing footage documenting the abuse of both Dylan and Shasta during their captivity. Though Shasta was now safe, Dylan remained unaccounted for. Duncan refused to speak, offering no answers. Investigators had no choice but to rely on the 8-year-old survivor. With astonishing composure and courage, Shasta recounted the harrowing details of her ordeal, including the murder of her brother. She also disclosed chilling information Duncan had shared with her, including admissions of other past murders.
I remembered everything. And then when I was found, I told the investigators what he had told me.
Eventually, Joseph Duncan broke his silence. In a chilling confession, he told investigators that he had deliberately hunted his victims. Driving through neighborhoods, he used a GPS device to mark homes where children lived, potential targets for his next attack. One day, while passing through Coeur d'Alene, he saw Shasta and Dylan Groney playing in their yard. That moment sealed their fate. Duncan spent days surveilling the family's home, carefully planning the assault that would leave 3 dead and 2 children abducted.
I remember him telling me that he was able to get the dog to come to him, and he gave her treats and stuff and like befriended our pit bull so that when he did come into the house to do what he was going to do, there was not that type of issue to get in the way.
He had thought about everything to make sure that he was going to commit the perfect crime.
During trial proceedings, the full extent of his crimes was laid bare. Among the most damning evidence were videos Duncan had filmed himself, graphic, harrowing footage that documented the abuse of Shasta and Dylan. Jurors were forced to witness the unfiltered brutality he had inflicted.
I think it's probably the single most disturbing piece of evidence, disturbing thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
While the video is extremely disturbing, it is the absolute key piece of evidence prosecutors can use to send Joseph Duncan to death row.
On October 16, 2006, Duncan pleaded guilty to 3 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of first-degree murder for the killings of Brenda Groney, Mark McKenzie, and 13-year-old Slade Groney. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Later, in federal court, Duncan pleaded guilty to 10 additional charges related to the kidnapping, sexual assault of Shasta and Dylan, and the murder of Dylan. For these crimes, he was sentenced to death.
31 years of being involved in the criminal justice system, I have never met a more evil person than Joseph Duncan.
Joseph Duncan was transferred to federal death row at the United States Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana, where he remained until March 28, 2021. Before the government could carry out his execution, he died from brain cancer, bringing an end to the life of the man who had caused so much pain. With his death, Shasta Groney was finally free of the predator who had haunted her past. In the wake of his passing, the Coeur d'Alene community came together in remembrance, gathering to celebrate what would have been Slade Groney's birthday. It was a moment of unity and reflection, honoring the lives that had been taken too soon.
He was just a really good brother to me, and that he was really sweet to people. Happy birthday, and tell Mom, Dylan, and Mark I love them and stuff, and hopefully we'll get to see them again.
For Shasta, however, the journey forward remained incredibly difficult. After surviving unimaginable trauma at just 8 years old, the road to healing was long and fraught with challenges.
I was happy to be in a safe place, but there was still that part of me that's like, well, what if this happens again?
She struggled with severe post-traumatic stress disorder, resenting the constant therapy, and the feeling of being recognized everywhere she went.
I just wanted to be a normal teenage girl. There was still court stuff going on with Joseph Duncan. There was still counseling that I had to do, and I didn't feel good about myself or the person that I was. So I think that all kind of pushed me over the edge.
In her teenage years, Shasta turned to drugs and alcohol as a way to numb the pain. Her coping mechanisms led her into further trouble, and she spent part of her adolescence in a correctional facility. There, she encountered other young girls with stories of trauma and addiction, girls who, like her, were searching for a way to reclaim their lives.
The judge was very honest with me, and she's like, Shasta, I feel like you do have a lot of help you can give people, and I feel like you're way better than what you're being.
In time, Shasta Groney began to reclaim her life. The turning point came with motherhood and the support of her husband, who, in a profound twist of fate, is related to Sammy Jo White and Carmen Cubillas, the half-sisters from Seattle whom Joseph Duncan also confessed to murdering.
A long time, I always had this feeling that I could not have kids, but he's not going to steal the fact that I can bring children into this world.
Things happen for a reason, I feel, and I believe in, my youngest son, had I never met his dad, he wouldn't be here, and how just things like that work. It was supposed to happen like that.
Their shared connection to unimaginable loss created a foundation of understanding, empathy, and strength. Shasta now finds healing in the love that surrounds her.
I still keep in contact with the guy that I made eye contact with outside of the restaurant. His name's Nick Chapman. A couple of the other investigators and officers that worked on my case, they brought me to their house and I met their kids. They completely made my life so much easier. They allowed me to be a kid when I felt like I couldn't.
Rather than dwell in the shadows of her past, she focuses on the overwhelming support she has received from those who have walked alongside her on the road to recovery. With each passing day, she grows more committed to living a life not defined by trauma, but by resilience.
I don't hate him for the things that he's done. I forgive him, actually. If I don't forgive him, then he's going to control my life. I want him to know that I'm doing good things with my life too, so that he knows that he doesn't control my life and that he doesn't affect me anymore.
Today, Shasta enjoys spending time with her family and continues to look ahead with purpose. Inspired by her own journey, she hopes to become a counselor, dedicating her life to helping others who have experienced hardship find their own path to healing.
I know that I lived for a reason, and I know that there's a reason that I'm on this planet still, and that I know that I'm here to help other people. If there's anybody in the world right now that's being abused and they hear that I'm giving up, what would that do for them?
What do you think gave Shasta Groney the strength to survive such unimaginable trauma and outsmart her captor? Should more be done to monitor and restrict the release of violent offenders like Joseph Duncan before they can harm others again? If you found this story powerful and heartbreaking, please consider subscribing for more in-depth true crime documentaries. Comment below with your thoughts on this case, and let us know what stories you'd like us to cover next. Don't forget to like, share, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. The Lamp and Light Mennonite community is a serene and devout enclave, known for its deep-rooted traditions and unwavering faith. Within its quiet bounds lived 27-year-old Sasha Krauss, a young woman who embraced both the discipline and purpose of her religious life. The community observes strict codes: no internet, no physical intimacy before marriage, and a conservative dress code. Women in particular are easily recognized by their modest dresses and head coverings, symbols of humility and spiritual devotion. Despite the restrictions, Sasha was full of quiet ambition. For the first time, she was living independently, working at a religious publishing house, and immersing herself in a life of faith, study, and personal growth. Her days were structured, purposeful, and full of promise. But one evening, everything changed. After finishing dinner, Sasha stepped outside briefly and vanished without a trace. Her sudden disappearance sent shockwaves through the community. Sasha had no history of leaving without notice. For her not to return was deeply out of character and a sign that something was terribly wrong. Local journalist Bree Burkett, who covered the case for both the Arizona Republic and the Arizona Daily Sun, would soon help bring this haunting mystery to public attention. It was a quiet Saturday evening. Sasha Krauss had plans to teach Sunday school the following morning. As part of her preparation, she left the apartment she shared with her roommates and drove the short distance to the church to gather teaching materials. The trip was routine, nothing unusual. But what happened next was anything but routine. In the Lamp and Light Mennonite community, curfew is strictly observed. Every member is expected to be home by 9 p.m. So when Sasha failed to return by that time and was still missing at 1 a.m., concern quickly turned to fear. Her roommates, alarmed by her absence, roused the rest of the community. Flashlights in hand, they fanned out into the night, searching desperately for any sign of her. Panic set in. This was not just unusual, it was unprecedented. After 4 hours of fruitless searching, the community made a difficult but necessary decision. They contacted the San Juan County Sheriff's Office. It was a call that marked a shift from concern to crisis. Detective Stephen Strang, a 5-year veteran of the department, was assigned as the lead investigator on the case. But for Strang, this case stood apart. The Mennonite community rarely reached out to law enforcement. Doing so was virtually unheard of. This was the first time he had ever been called to their grounds. What lay ahead would challenge both his experience and the quiet world Sasha Krauss once called home. In the Mennonite tradition, matters are typically handled within the community. Turning to outside authorities is rare, reserved only for the most extraordinary circumstances. Sasha Krauss's disappearance was one of them. Due to the unusual nature of the case, the San Juan County Sheriff's Office took the lead in the investigation. Sheriff Shane Ferrari recalls the moment his office received the report. When someone is reported missing, he explained, the first question we ask is whether they left voluntarily or whether they were taken. According to Sasha's roommates, they last saw her shortly after dinner. She mentioned she was heading to the church just a few hundred feet away to retrieve materials for her Sunday school class. When investigators arrived at the church, her vehicle was still parked there. The gravel lot showed no obvious signs of struggle, no displaced earth, no drag marks. But a closer look would raise immediate concerns. Inside the car, wedged between the rocker panel and the seat, were Sasha's keys left behind. For detectives, this was the first clear sign that something was not right. Attention quickly turned to the church itself. Investigators searched for any indication that Sasha had encountered violence, any evidence of a struggle or foul play, But there was nothing. No blood, no signs of forced entry, no torn fabric or strands of hair. Just an eerie silence. What began as a community concern was now shaping into something far more disturbing. A potential abduction in a place where things like this simply don't happen. At first, the scene suggested Sasha Krauss may have left voluntarily, but investigators didn't yet realize that, if confronted, Sasha might not have resisted. In Mennonite communities, the principle of non-resistance is deeply rooted. Violence is rejected, even in self-defense. Sasha wasn't born into this way of life. Her family converted when she was 12. Chester C. Weaver, Jr., a longtime community member, recalls, "Those who come for deeper reasons like the Krausses tend to stay. We're a third way, not Catholic, not Protestant, but focused on humility and forgiveness." In 2018, Sasha moved from Texas to New Mexico to work at Lamp and Lights Publishing House, editing Bible pamphlets. In her free time, she wrote poems and songs, quiet expressions of a creative and thoughtful soul. Those who knew Sasha Krauss quickly realized there was far more to her than the label Mennonite might suggest. Her writing reflected a deep inner world. She was fluent in 3 languages, artistically gifted, and intellectually curious. Though she adhered to a conservative dress code, her life was marked by independence. She lived with roommates, held a steady job, and drove her own car. In many ways, she resembled any young woman in her late 20s. As hours passed with no sign of Sasha, investigators began to explore alternative possibilities. Could she have chosen to walk away from the structured life of the community? Her background and talents raised the question. Was she seeking something beyond the boundaries of her faith? Detectives considered whether she might have been quietly communicating with someone outside the community, perhaps exploring relationships, or even a different way of life. The idea of voluntary departure, though unlikely to those who knew her well, could not yet be ruled out. Detectives soon learned from Sasha's roommates that, in line with Mennonite customs, the young women did not use the internet. This posed an immediate challenge. In modern investigations, digital footprints, social media activity, internet history, phone records are often critical tools. But in Sasha's case, those avenues simply didn't exist. A search of her room offered more troubling signs. Her purse and bank card were still there. If Sasha had planned to leave voluntarily, it seemed unlikely she would have left without them. There was no note, no evidence of a secret plan or destination, nothing to suggest she intended to disappear. Investigators found no indication that Sasha had planned her disappearance. No notes, no messages, no packed belongings. The deeper they looked, the clearer it became something was wrong. 8 hours after Sasha was last seen, detectives contacted her parents. The call was filled with uncertainty. Her family was devastated, but law enforcement had few answers. With no evidence of a romantic relationship and no digital trail, the investigation seemed to stall. Then came an unexpected development. During a follow-up interview with one of Sasha's roommates, detectives learned Sasha did in fact own a cell phone, though it was currently unaccounted for.
So you think when she ran to the church, she would have turned her car off and taken the keys into the church with her?
Right.
Okay.
Actually, if she would have left anything in her car, it would have been her phone. I'm the type of person to always have her phone on. Like, she uses it when she needs it, but barely that.
It was a small but vital lead. Investigators began tracking the phone, hopeful it might provide the first real clue. While traditional Mennonite communities often avoid modern technology, cell phone use is not strictly prohibited. For some, like Sasha, and others such as Lucinda Kinzinger, a phone is seen not as a worldly distraction, but as a practical tool in a modern world. Lucinda Kinzinger identifies as a conservative or plain Mennonite. She and her husband run a small farm, and both rely on smartphones in their daily lives. For Lucinda, the phone is a practical tool used for everything from recipes and photos to email. However, not all conservative Mennonites feel the same. Many draw a firm line at smartphones and internet access, wary of the outside world's influence on their values and way of life. It's an ongoing debate within the community, how to preserve tradition in the face of modern technology. Sasha Krauss, however, used only a basic flip phone, enough to stay in limited touch with the outside world. For investigators, that phone now represented a critical lead, but gaining access to her phone records would take time. While waiting on phone records, detectives began canvassing the area. In a community as small and close-knit as Lamp and Light, everyone notices everything, and everyone knows everyone. It wasn't long before someone reported seeing a familiar vehicle outside the church around the time Sasha was believed to have been there. The vehicle belonged to Sam Kuhn, Sasha's supervisor at the Lamp and Light publishing house. Considerably older than Sasha, Kuhn was known to favor her among the staff, according to her roommates. Witnesses reported seeing his van near the church at approximately 7:50 p.m., with the rear hatch open, details that immediately raised suspicions. Kuhn confirmed to detectives that he had in fact been at the church that evening, during the same time window when Sasha disappeared.
Tell me what you remember about last night.
Okay, last night we left my home, my wife and I. We took the minivan over to pick up a water cooler. We went in. My wife said it was about 10 minutes to 8.
Did you see Sasha's car?
I remember nothing about seeing Sasha's car.
Oh, okay.
The timing was remarkably close, yet he claimed there was no interaction between them.
Are you usually forgetful?
It depends on the area. Some details my wife takes care of, and I put my mind in neutral.
Detectives noted Kuhn's demeanor, highly intelligent, direct, but emotionally guarded. The overlap in time and location, combined with his reserved nature, positioned him as someone investigators could not afford to overlook.
So you didn't go back to the church at all that evening?
That evening we did not.
Okay. So you didn't take Sasha?
No.
You didn't hide Sasha?
No.
You didn't kill Sasha? So what would you say to dissuade me from that thought?
That I'm not responsible?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. You'll have to examine the evidence.
You're not even going to say anything to defend your...
No.
How come?
Well, you know as well as I do. This evidence speaks for itself.
After detectives briefly stepped out of the interview room, something unexpected happened. Sam Kuhn began to cry. Whether the tears were from grief, guilt, or fear of exposure was unclear, but the timing was enough to raise concern. Back in the Lamp and Light community, Sasha Krauss's disappearance sent waves of shock and sorrow. What began as a quick trip to collect Bible materials had now spiraled into a full-scale investigation. Detectives grew increasingly convinced that Sasha may have known her abductor, and their suspicions lingered around her supervisor, Sam Kuhn.
She was not from a Mennonite background. I wasn't exactly either.
I could tell that you're very emotional about this.
I've been away quite a bit to nothing. Okay.
I understand that and I appreciate it. Was there something more with you and Sasha?
No.
Despite their unease, investigators lacked the evidence needed to detain him. As hours continued to slip away, so did hope. The search pressed on without rest, but the chances of finding Sasha alive were growing increasingly slim. The investigation continued with little rest. Detectives worked around the clock, driven by urgency and the belief that time was running out. There had to be something, some clue they had missed. 4 days after Sasha Krauss disappeared, her parents arrived from Texas, desperate for answers. Sasha's father, Bob Krauss, struggled to make sense of the situation. He spoke with investigators trying to process the unimaginable. As he put it, they turned to prayer, asking for strength, protection, and grace for their daughter. The disappearance of a young woman from such a respected, peaceful community sent shockwaves through San Juan County. The Mennonites were well regarded locally, but their history told a different story, one marked by centuries of persecution for beliefs that often placed them outside the mainstream. Now concern was growing that a predator might be among them. This case felt personal. For many in the Mennonite community, Sasha's disappearance was a stark reminder that it could happen to anyone. One church member recalled praying for her and feeling deeply unsettled. The only lead was Sasha's missing phone. 8 days after she vanished, investigators finally received her phone records. Among the data was a set of unexpected coordinates, Her phone had traveled nearly 50 miles west into a remote area of Arizona. The discovery raised a haunting question. How did Sasha end up there? Even for someone as intellectually curious as Sasha Krauss, the remote location where her phone last pinged made little sense. It was, by all accounts, the middle of nowhere, an isolated expanse covering over 100 square miles of rugged terrain. Investigators had no additional clues to narrow the search. Faced with a vast wilderness and no clear starting point, the chances of locating her seemed increasingly slim. By this stage in the investigation, a grim reality had begun to set in. The likelihood of finding Sasha alive was fading. While hope lingered, experience and evidence pointed toward a tragic outcome. Days passed, then weeks. Over a month after Sasha's disappearance, the case remained stalled until a chilling call came in. Authorities in Coconino County reported that a hiker had discovered a body matching Sasha's description.
You're just willing to write a statement for me of what you saw and how this happened?
I can't go anywhere. I mean, at this point, what I'll probably do, I think, is I'm going to go down to Sedona after this and see my friend.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be alone.
After weeks of uncertainty, investigators now faced the very real possibility that Sasha Krauss had been found, but not in the way anyone had hoped. The discovery raised even more questions. Sunset Crater National Park, where the body was found, is 250 miles from where Sasha Krauss was last seen, across state lines in Arizona.
So where is she? Straight ahead.
If the remains were hers, it meant investigators had been searching in the wrong direction for weeks. What else might they have missed? 1 month after Sasha vanished from her Mennonite community in Farmington, New Mexico, a body was located near the summit of Sunset Crater, just outside Flagstaff. Chief Deputy County Attorney Amon Barker, then a senior trial attorney, received the initial call. The body, believed to be that of a young woman dressed in modest prairie-style clothing, matched Sasha's description. Investigators noted the absence of underwear, an unsettling detail that initially raised concerns of physical assault. As soon as Detective Stephen Strang learned of the discovery, he and his team immediately headed to Flagstaff to assist in the investigation. After nearly a month of uncertainty, investigators were stunned. Was this truly happening? Could this really be Sasha Krauss? When the San Juan County team arrived at the remote crime scene near Flagstaff, Arizona, a Coconino County homicide detective rolled the body to reveal the woman's face. Soon after, autopsy results confirmed the grim reality. The body was indeed that of missing Mennonite woman Sasha Krauss. With confirmation came a shift. The case was now officially classified as a homicide. As news of the discovery was delivered to Sasha's grieving parents, investigators began piecing together what had happened. Her wrists were bound in front with duct tape. The autopsy revealed blunt force trauma to the back of her head, along with a fatal gunshot wound. The question that now haunted both communities was why? Why would anyone want to kill Sasha Krauss? And how did she end up over 250 miles from home? The murder shocked not only the tight-knit Mennonite community, but also the quiet mountain town of Flagstaff, where violent crime is rare. Levi Stallings, a videographer who later covered the murder trial, recalled the deep impact the case had on everyone involved. To kill someone like Sasha Krauss, gentle, devout, and harmless, struck investigators as an act of pure malice. Yet despite the troubling detail of her missing underwear, the medical examiner found no signs of physical assault. This only deepened the mystery. If there was no intimate motive and no apparent crime of opportunity, what drove someone to commit such a heinous act and transport her body 250 miles away? Detective Strang and his team brought Sam Kuhn, Sasha's supervisor, back in for further questioning. His emotional breakdown during the initial interview had raised suspicions, including whether he may have had an inappropriate relationship with Sasha.
No reason that your phone would show in the area of Flagstaff on those nights, right? The night that she went missing, there's absolutely no reason that your phone would show in Arizona.
No, absolutely not. I don't even know that I'd been in Flagstaff before I'm quite sure I haven't.
Still unconvinced by his account, investigators reviewed Kuhn's cell phone records. To their surprise, the data confirmed his alibi. He had been telling the truth. Cell phone data confirmed that Sam Kuhn had been traveling in a different direction the night Sasha disappeared. The evidence fully corroborated his account and provided him with an irrefutable alibi. With Kuhn cleared as a suspect, investigators began to pay closer attention to his insights.
I don't understand the mind of a perpetrator, but was there a grudge? I don't know. Who would have a grudge against her? What I was trying to find out right now was if there were a prisoner in the local prison.
Kuhn explained that Sasha, a passionate writer, dedicated much of her time to outreach, specifically writing to individuals in disenfranchised communities, including prison inmates. One of her responsibilities at Lamp and Light involved participating in a prison ministry program run by the Mennonite community. This revelation opened a new line of inquiry. The San Juan County Detention Center, just 4 miles from Lamp and Light, houses hundreds of inmates. Investigators began to consider a troubling possibility. Could one of these men have become obsessed with Sasha, tracked her upon release, and abducted her under cover of night? Inside Sasha's room, investigators found stacks of letters related to her prison outreach, but none indicated a threat or pointed to anyone wishing her harm. Once again, the case hit a dead end. Determined not to give up, detectives revisited the cell tower data along Sasha's known route. In a breakthrough moment, they discovered a second phone had pinged alongside hers, moving at the same pace, at the same time until her phone went silent. The call came in. "Sheriff, we've got a match." The number belonged to a 21-year-old U.S. Air Force mechanic named Mark Gooch. The data suggested one chilling conclusion. Sasha hadn't been alone. Someone had been with her. Mark Gooch was an active-duty airman stationed at an Air Force base near Phoenix. Detectives from San Juan County, now working closely with Flagstaff police, traveled to the base to question him. At first, Gooch appeared unconcerned. He believed he was being questioned for speeding on his motorcycle.
Well, thank you for your service, first of all. I did not serve in the military myself, so I really admire people who choose to do that.
I serve my country.
To investigators, Gooch didn't immediately fit the profile of a violent offender. Like law enforcement, military personnel take an oath to serve and protect. Mark had chosen a path of discipline and national service, which made what came next all the more unsettling.
If you don't mind me asking, what kind of religion did you grow up in?
Mainly, they were called Mennonites. Or Amish. I'm not sure how.
Oh.
But
Are you still Mennonite? I don't really know how to word that.
I still wish to attend the church. I just didn't really want to become a part of it.
Oh, okay. I got you. So you may have the same beliefs or faith, but you don't necessarily practice like the lifestyle.
Correct. The lifestyle is a bit too restricting.
Gooch revealed that, like Sasha, he had a Mennonite background, a striking coincidence. But when asked about travel, he claimed he hadn't left the state in over 6 months.
There was a girl named Sasha Krauss that was killed. Did you hear about that case?
I've seen it in the news. Yes, ma'am.
Right. So that's the case that I'm working. Any idea now why I'd want to talk to you at all?
Probably because I was traveling up in the Mexico area, probably.
I'm a little confused because at first you said you hadn't traveled, but now, did you go to New Mexico?
No, I'm sorry. My memory just, I don't know. It's not what it used to be. I'm tired today.
Detectives were now faced with a critical contradiction. Cell phone data placed him moving in tandem with Sasha the night she vanished, yet he denied ever leaving Phoenix. Was it an innocent mistake or a deliberate lie? That was the question investigators now faced as they questioned 21-year-old Mark Gooch in connection with the murder of Sasha Krauss, a bright and devout member of the Farmington Mennonite community. Detectives had just uncovered that Gooch also came from a Mennonite background, though he had distanced himself from the faith. At 18, he left the church, and in stark contrast to its pacifist principles, enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. Gooch initially claimed he had not been near Farmington the night Sasha disappeared, but detectives had irrefutable evidence to the contrary. His cell phone had pinged alongside Sasha's, mirroring her movements until her phone went dark. The overlap was no coincidence.
Why were you in New Mexico that day?
I was checking out Mennonite churches, and I made it up to the Mennonite church, and they were trying to remember. Do they have a Saturday evening service there?
I don't know, actually.
Unfortunately, they didn't have a Saturday evening service, so I couldn't attend that. So I figured I would head back, go hiking the next day.
So you said you're getting home at 8 or 9 p.m. on Saturday night.
Correct.
Right. Okay, cool. And just something to remember, since you live here on Luke Air Force Base, of course, you go in and out of a security gate.
Yes.
There's cameras all over the base.
Surveillance footage from the Air Force Base revealed Mark Gooch returning early the morning after Sasha Krauss was abducted, further confirming his presence near the scene.
So what if I told you that the time that you came in the gate that morning was 6:53 in the morning?
What not guess it was that late?
That's a long time.
Yes, ma'am.
You saying that you came home at even 2 in the morning compared to almost 7 in the morning, that's almost 5-hour difference.
So it sounds like I need to get a lawyer because you're trying to pin something on me.
For investigators, it was enough to move forward. Gooch was arrested on the spot, but arresting him was only the first step. Without a clear motive, prosecutors knew they couldn't hold him for long. Why would a young man with a promising military future target a Mennonite woman hundreds of miles away? To find answers, investigators dug deeper into Gooch's life. His military commander directed them to his close friend on base, Alex Golub.
So when I first met him, I remember the first day I saw him at basic training. I was the third bed, and he was across at the first bed, and I saw him, and I was like, oh, this guy's like pretty scary looking, right? Just because he was a little off.
When you just said you thought he looked scary,
Right.
What do you mean?
Just stiff as a board, body language. He wasn't relaxed. He was like at attention all the time. He'd always be like for everything, just like, yes, sir, like, no, ma'am. But as time went on, we just kind of labeled it as, that's just Gooch. You know, he was raised on a farm. His social skills weren't the best.
Okay. Did he seem to talk about his family a lot?
Not his family, but he'd always talk about his cop brother.
Through Golub, they learned that Mark had 3 brothers, with whom he maintained regular contact via text. Subpoenaed phone records revealed disturbing conversations, particularly with 2 of his brothers, that exposed a deep-seated hatred for the Mennonite faith. In one message, a brother working as a Virginia state trooper even mentioned pulling over a Mennonite family en route to a wedding during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. The texts painted a troubling picture. Mark's animosity toward the Mennonite community was far from casual. It was personal and intense. Mark Gooch appeared to take satisfaction in the suffering of Mennonites, even those he had never met. Text messages revealed he had been surveilling Mennonite communities in the Phoenix area for months, using coded terms like on servo to describe his actions. The implications were chilling. He had been watching, planning, but for what? Investigators became increasingly convinced that Sasha Krauss had been targeted solely because of her faith. Still, belief alone wasn't enough. They needed hard evidence. Gooch had no prior record of violence, and there was no clear, documented motive. There was also no DNA evidence linking him to the crime. What they did have was the bullet. The medical examiner recovered a .22 caliber round lodged near Sasha's neck, revealing the weapon used in her murder. The breakthrough came when police learned Gooch had handed off his .22 caliber rifle to a friend off base shortly after Sasha's disappearance. That rifle could tie him to the crime. With each new detail, the case became clearer. Investigators now believed that Mark Gooch had spent months prowling the Four Corners region, driven by a deep-seated hatred, searching for a Mennonite to kill. And tragically, he found Sasha. When he found Sasha alone outside an empty church, he seized the opportunity, posing as a fellow Mennonite to gain her trust. He then overpowered her, bound her hands, and forced her into his car. Evidence suggests she was severely beaten, suffering skull fractures, before Gooch drove west in search of a remote place to kill her. A complication arose when Sasha's phone rang, something he hadn't anticipated. But it didn't stop him. He likely chose Sunset Crater National Park simply because it was isolated and convenient. To avoid being caught, Mark Gooch took every step to cover his tracks. Yet the horror of what Sasha Krauss endured remains unimaginable. Abducted by a stranger, marched to a remote location, and ultimately shot in the back of the head. With the murder weapon recovered and cell phone data placing Gooch alongside Sasha, Investigators hoped the evidence would be enough to persuade a jury. But Gooch was prepared to fight the charges to the end. On September 24, 2021, Mark Gooch stood trial for the kidnapping and first-degree murder of Sasha Krauss. Mennonite community members from across the country attended, filling the courtroom with quiet sorrow and solidarity. For many involved, the trial was deeply emotional. One courtroom videographer described the atmosphere as somber, comparable only to a funeral. Without a confession and lacking forensic evidence like DNA, the prosecution faced a significant challenge. Their case relied entirely on circumstantial evidence. In an era shaped by crime dramas and forensic expectations, they would need to convince all 12 jurors that the truth didn't require a smoking gun, just a clear and compelling chain of facts. On the surface, it may have seemed like the perfect crime, but the prosecution had one key piece of evidence: cell phone data. Both Mark Gooch's and Sasha Krauss's phones moved in the same direction, at the same speed, and during the exact time frame Sasha disappeared. Only one phone matched every location tied to the case, and after Sasha's phone went dark, Gooch's continued on, ultimately pinging just 1.37 miles from where her body was later discovered. His device passed Sunset Crater at 1:03 a.m., then turned east. The final ping placed it on Highway 113 east of the crater. It was compelling, methodical evidence, but the question remained, would the jury be convinced? After 6 hours of deliberation, they were. Mark Gooch was found guilty. In the end, it was Sasha Krauss's cell phone that helped bring her killer to justice. Had she not remained curious about the world, keeping one foot in modern life, she may never have carried a phone at all. That single decision proved critical. While no one can fully understand what drove Mark Gooch, many, including those close to the case, viewed the murder as a religious hate crime. In a powerful act of grace, Sasha's parents asked the court to remove the death penalty from consideration. Mark Gooch was ultimately sentenced to life in prison. Without the cell phone data, the case may never have been solved. It was the one piece of technology Sasha carried, ironically, the very thing her faith community often avoids, that led to the truth. Do you think Mark Gooch planned Sasha Krauss's murder long before he even met her? Or was it a crime of opportunity fueled by hatred? Should faith communities like the Mennonites adapt more to modern tools like cell phones for safety? Or does that compromise their core beliefs? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime content. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what you think. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.
911, where's your emergency?
Is a robber at a pawn shop?
Where's the robber? Where is he?
He's right here, right now. I ran very fast with my baby sister. I just didn't want to be killed.
In 2013, in the tranquil town of Danville, Kentucky, Andrew Hawkinsmith lived a contented life alongside his father, Michael, his mother, Angie, and his 13-month-old sister, Naomi. The bond between Michael and Angie began as a classic tale of love at first sight, rooted deeply in shared values and a strong commitment to their Christian faith. Michael served as a part-time youth pastor, and both he and Angie were active, well-respected members of their local church community. However, the modest income from his pastoral duties proved insufficient to fully support their growing family. Seeking additional financial stability, Michael turned to a trusted acquaintance within the church, Pastor Alan Keith. Pastor Keith was a prominent religious figure in the region, known for delivering sermons across mobile congregations. Beyond his spiritual leadership, he maintained an unconventional side business, owning and operating a chain of pawn shops. It was through this unusual blend of ministry and commerce that Pastor Keith presented Michael with a compelling opportunity.
Usually, pastors and pawn shops don't necessarily go together.
He was buying precious metals, videos, and CDs and things.
Between that and the Bible, that was his life.
Pastor Alan Keith was a devout man known for preaching the Word of God every Sunday across Pulaski County. However, alongside his spiritual devotion, he also harbored a deep appreciation for wealth, particularly gold. His dual passions converged in his business ventures, where he owned and operated a pawn shop chain known as ABC Gold Games and more. Under Pastor Keith's mentorship, Michael Hawkinsmith soon became involved in the business himself. He began working at the pawn shop, and with the new job providing financial security alongside the recent birth of baby Naomi, life seemed to be on an upward path for the Hawkinsmith family. Michael and Angie found joy in raising their children and made the deliberate decision to homeschool their son, Andrew, allowing the family to remain close-knit even during the day. Each morning, the entire family, Michael, Angie, Andrew, and little Naomi, would gather at the pawn shop, turning it into a unique blend of workplace and home.
The pawn shop, that was basically my home. We had all the knickknacks of a pawn shop, from like games to movies to all sorts of junk. It was basically a playground. I absolutely loved it. It was simply amazing.
But their peaceful routine was shattered on the morning of September 20th, 2013. At precisely 9:17 a.m., a 911 dispatcher in Kentucky answered a call. On the other end of the line was a young boy, his voice quiet but urgent, reporting a robbery in progress at a Danville pawn shop.
911, where's your emergency? Is a robber at a pawn shop?
The innocence of the voice masked the horror that was unfolding. 9-year-old Andrew Hawkinsmith remained on the line, his voice trembling as he pleaded with the 911 operator for help. As the dispatcher calmly tried to gather critical information, another sound broke through the tension. The soft but unmistakable cry of a baby. It was Naomi.
Where's the robber? Where is he? He's right here right now.
Both Andrew and his infant sister were forced to remain as silent as possible, knowing that any noise could reveal their hiding place to the intruder, still inside the pawn shop.
Come here quickly, because I'm afraid. Please hurry. Okay, they're coming, okay?
Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the dispatcher immediately dispatched patrol units to the scene, while keeping Andrew on the line, offering reassurance to the frightened child. Within just 6 minutes, officers arrived at ABC Gold Games and more. With no idea what horrors awaited them inside, they approached the storefront with caution. The front door was locked, leaving no time for negotiation. Acting swiftly, authorities shattered the glass and forced entry, bracing themselves for whatever they might encounter within.
As I made entry, all I was thinking about was, is the shooter still here? The first thing that I noticed was a huge smear of blood to my right in the lobby area of the store.
I don't care how many times you've done it or seen it. There's nothing that truly prepares you for this.
Officers' worst fears are confirmed the moment they enter the pawn shop. Inside, 3 lifeless bodies lie sprawled across the floor. With no immediate indication of whether the gunman remains on the premises, officers urgently clear the building, searching for the young caller who had led them there. Following directions from the 911 dispatcher, they locate the 2 children, Andrew and baby Naomi, still hidden in their makeshift shelter. Both are visibly shaken, but miraculously unharmed. They are swiftly escorted to safety and taken to the police station, where trained personnel begin the delicate process of comforting and interviewing the traumatized siblings. Meanwhile, the pawn shop is flooded with law enforcement personnel. Detectives begin documenting the scene, while a forensic team begins their grim task of examining the victims. The nature of the store complicates the investigation. Firearms, ammunition, and valuables are scattered throughout, making it difficult to distinguish forensic evidence from merchandise. The first victim, a woman, is found near the cash register. A second victim, a man, lies just beyond the counter. A trail of blood leads investigators to the third body, another male, discovered at the rear of the store. Each victim's position and injuries begin to paint a clearer picture of the violent events that unfolded, but the motive and identity of the killer remain chillingly unclear.
One of the bodies had been moved to a location where if someone peered into the front door, they wouldn't be able to see that body.
The victims had been shot multiple times, possibly after they were down. The only thing at that time that we could determine was that The spent casings appeared to be from a .22 caliber weapon.
As word of the tragedy spread, Andrew's grandmothers, Charlene and Barbara, rushed to the scene, desperate for answers. From behind a line of police cars and yellow tape, they were stopped by officers as the investigation unfolded inside.
And the policeman would not let us up to the shop. They said, "You cannot go in." Well, I just broke down at that point. I knew they were gone. And my heart just sunk. Just couldn't understand why. What had they done so bad that they deserved to die? Could not comprehend why anyone in their right mind would want to hurt either one of them.
The first two victims were quickly identified as Michael and Angie Hawkinsmith, owners of the pawn shop and loving parents to Andrew and Naomi. The third was 60-year-old Dan Smith, a regular customer known for buying and selling gold. At first, it appeared to be a robbery gone wrong. The pawn shop, filled with valuables, seemed a likely target. But one key piece of evidence didn't fit the theory, suggesting this was far more than just a random crime. Dan Smith's suitcase, found open on the counter, remained untouched, still filled with cash. The store's register also held money. The fact that neither was taken immediately cast doubt on the theory of a robbery gone wrong. Why would a thief leave behind such obvious valuables?
As I continued to process the scene, I discovered that over $1,000 from the cash register was still there. It hadn't been taken. Both Mike and Dan's wallets hadn't been taken. It made me start to think that the victims had been targeted for a reason other than robbery.
Detectives grew increasingly puzzled by the scene. If theft wasn't the motive, what was? Could one or more of the victims have been specifically targeted?
We're like, what do we have here? It was a hit. Was it on Dan Smith?
Dan Smith was a gold buyer. He carries a briefcase with him with a large amount of cash.
Dan Smith's wife was able to tell us that he would do a certain route on certain days of the week. So he goes to his bank, he gets the money, and then he had a lot of pawn shops that he went to.
Investigators turned their attention to Dan Smith's usual routine, visiting Lawson's Jewelers in Harrodsburg, a stop just 19 minutes from the Hawkinsmith pawn shop.
He walks in with that same briefcase and then talks to the lady behind the counter and just appears very relaxed, laughing. Has no idea, obviously, where he's headed. I don't even think it was a full hour after this. Dan Smith was killed.
There was nobody that appeared to be paying any particular attention to him. There was nothing that stood out.
We really were kind of baffled at this point. Who was even the target?
However, their initial focus on Dan yielded no new leads. None of the victims appeared to have known enemies, and the investigation stalled. With no suspects and no clear motive, the case grew colder. Meanwhile, grief swept through the Hawkinsmith and Smith families. News of the triple homicide spread quickly, shocking the tight-knit community in neighboring towns. In a place where violence was rare, the brutal nature of the crime left residents stunned and searching for answers.
2 young children are without their parents tonight after they were murdered inside their Danville, Kentucky pawn shop. That store is located just blocks from Center College. As Matt McCutcheon reports, one of the kids called 911 and shielded his sister from the violence.
The town of Danville, shaken by the brutal murders, demands answers. Even Pastor Alan Keith, the man who first introduced Michael Hawkinsmith to the pawn business, publicly expresses his grief. In a heartfelt message shared on social media, he writes, "No sleep at all. I am in shock right now over the loss of 3 great people. I also knew the third man. He was a business client and a good friend."
We're now learning that the suspect in this case, apparently police say, made his way out of this garage door and then took off through the alley, never to be seen from again.
If you have any information, call Danville Police at the number now on your screen.
As authorities work urgently to track down the killer, they face a troubling reality. There is still no clear motive, no specific suspect, and no sense of why the victims were targeted. With so much unknown, there remains a chilling concern that young Andrew could still be in danger. In the meantime, both Andrew and his infant sister Naomi are under protective care at the police station. Plans are made for their transfer into the custody of their grandparents while the entire community struggles to comprehend who would commit such a senseless act. Just as investigators begin to run out of leads, a new call comes in, offering a potential breakthrough in the case. The case takes a dramatic turn when a tipster calls in with a critical lead.
I'd gotten on Facebook and noticed, homicides in Danville, Kentucky pawn shop. And immediately my heart sunk because I thought a friend of mine still owned that shop, Alan Keith. So that's when I called him. Immediately, as soon as I started talking to him, it was an odd conversation.
Once Kenneth Allen's name was mentioned, we started looking, okay, who is this guy?
He was involved in the pawn shop business. He had one in Somerset, Kentucky. And he was a pastor of a small town church in Pulaski County, Kentucky. He appeared to be loved by his local congregation.
That was kind of a common denominator for everybody involved, as they were all heavily into the church, either as pastors, ministers, leaders, just in a church.
Brother Harold, he said, I feel horrible because he said, I got Mike Hawkinsmith into the pawn business.
The caller claims that his friend, Pastor Kenneth Allen Keith, had made unsettling remarks about the murders. Keith, who lived in Somerset, about 50 minutes from Danville, was in town on the day of the killings, allegedly to pick up a prescription for his wife at a local pharmacy he rarely visited.
I said, you were in Danville? He goes, yeah. He says, I was in Danville to pick up my wife's prescriptions.
Alan's given us detailed, step-by-step description of where he was that day.
Now I'm freaking out because I'm thinking, why are you telling me this? So pretty much, Michael and Angela were innocent bystanders. And then he said they weren't innocent. They cost me a lot of money.
Investigators begin to scrutinize Pastor Keith's background. As they examine his financial history, they uncover a significant detail. Keith had once been the sole owner of ABC Gold Games and more. However, due to mounting debts and financial instability, he had been forced to hand over ownership of the business to Michael and Angie Hawkinsmith.
Kenneth felt cheated. He felt that that pawn shop should have been his. And that Hawkinsmith basically stole it right out underneath his feet.
Suddenly, a possible motive emerges: resentment, financial strain, and a loss of control. But there's a potential obstacle. Keith claimed he was at the pharmacy around the time of the murders. If his alibi held, he could be cleared of suspicion entirely.
I was in Danville, but I was at the pharmacy. I'm standing in the pharmacy while all this happened.
We immediately dispatched investigators to retrieve the video from the pharmacy where he alleged that he had picked up the prescriptions for his wife.
If he was in there during the time of the shooting, then he wouldn't have been a suspect.
Surveillance footage from the pharmacy confirms that Pastor Keith was there, captured on camera at 9:24 a.m. However, this detail raises more concern than relief. The 911 call reporting the murders came in at 9:17 a.m., just 8 minutes earlier. The timeline now suggests something chilling. Pastor Keith could have committed the murders and still made it to the pharmacy in time to establish a false alibi. It appeared impossible for someone to be in two places at once. Pastor Keith's appearance at the pharmacy at 9:24 a.m. cast serious doubt on his involvement, threatening to derail the investigation entirely. But detectives knew there was still one person who might hold the truth: 9-year-old Andrew Hawkinsmith, the brave young survivor who had called 911 that morning. If Andrew could recall any detail confirming that Pastor Keith was at the pawn shop during the murders, it could shatter the alibi and put the case back on track.
What happened today earlier before you and I met?
Yes. Anyways. And that reminds me of the dead people.
According to Andrew, September 20 began like any other morning. The Hawkinsmith family arrived at ABC Gold Games and more and opened the shop at 9 a.m. As his parents prepared for the business day, Andrew sat in a corner quietly playing a video game. Soon after, a familiar figure walked through the door. Dan Smith, the gold man, a regular customer known for his friendly visits and gold trading. While Michael chatted with Dan near the counter, Angie stood nearby, gently rocking baby Naomi in her arms. Everything seemed routine until the peace was shattered by what came next. What began as a normal morning quickly turned into a nightmare. After a calm exchange between Michael and Dan, Andrew lost interest and returned to playing a game, part of his usual routine between study sessions with his mom.
Shortly after, this guy, he came in as well, and I was like, he's kind of weird looking. He starts to pull out a gun and kind of raises his voice and says, "Get on the ground." And we all did because we was petrified.
But soon, Andrew, Angie, and baby Naomi were crouched in a corner, hiding in fear. From their spot, they watched in horror as a man opened fire, 8 shots ringing out. To Andrew, the sounds resembled darts, but he was unknowingly witnessing his father's final moments. The gunman then turned to Dan.
Dad was like, "Please stop." He started rolling around until he wasn't. He stopped.
Realizing they were next, Angie made a final, heroic decision. With no time to spare, she guided her children to the only hiding spot left, risking her life to save theirs.
My mom, she told me to go in the back with my sister. I crawl all the way back to the office. I sit my sister on the couch. I'm sitting right beside her.
Now concealed in the office, Andrew hears 4 additional gunshots, followed by an unsettling silence. A few tense moments pass. Though terrified, he knows he must check on his parents. Stepping out cautiously, he is met with a devastating scene.
I remember crawling over to the doorway and seeing that my mom was just laying there with a puddle of blood.
Realizing that he and baby Naomi appeared to be the only survivors, Andrew returns to the office, shaken but determined to protect his sister. With Naomi's safety now his only focus, he quickly grabs the office phone and calls 911, hoping for help before the intruder discovers their location.
A 9-year-old boy called 911 saying his family had been killed. What the little boy did before that is simply heartbreaking.
He grabbed his little sister up and he carried her in the office and he covered her with his body. And, it's just, he's a hero.
He and his 14-month-old sister were not physically hurt.
I ran very fast with my baby sister. I just didn't want to be killed.
Andrew's courage, presence of mind, and detailed recollection of events become instrumental in the investigation. His testimony casts doubt on Pastor Keith's alibi, allowing detectives to re-examine the case with renewed clarity. Suddenly, the previously scattered clues fall into place, including the identification of Pastor Keith's silver minivan, matching the vehicle seen near the crime scene. With this critical link, the case against him begins to solidify. Just before and shortly after the shooting, a security camera captured footage of a silver vehicle matching Pastor Keith's minivan circling the pawn shop. Thanks to the precise timestamp provided by Andrew's 911 call, investigators confirmed that Keith had enough time to commit the murders and still appear at the pharmacy minutes later, shattering the credibility of his alibi. Without this crucial detail, he may have walked free. On October 9, 2013, 19 days after the murders, authorities secured 3 warrants, one for Pastor Keith's home, another for his church, and a third for his pawn shop in Somerset.
An investigator went in as a potential customer and made contact with Mr. Allen.
We discovered a box for a threaded device that can be purchased over the internet that can be fashioned into a makeshift silencer.
During the searches, investigators found evidence confirming the use of a silencer during the attack, which explained Andrew's initial description of the gunfire as sounding like darts.
And then also outside of the business, We found spent 22 shell casings and then a target that had been shot. So we believe that he was practicing prior to the shooting.
The 22 casings found in Kenneth Keith's pawn shop matched all the expended shell casings from the murder scene in Danville, Kentucky. They were shot from the identical weapon.
Pastor Keith was arrested without resistance inside his own shop. For the families of Michael and Angie Hawkins Smith and Dan Smith, it was a moment of bittersweet relief. The man they once trusted had betrayed them in the worst possible way, but justice had finally been served.
But to be able to commit murders on Friday and then get up on the pulpit Sunday morning and preach, especially in front of two children, you're going, wait a minute, that's not a real pastor.
To spare Andrew, his sister, and the victims' families the trauma of a lengthy trial, prosecutors offered Pastor Keith a plea deal: life in prison without the possibility of parole in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. As the courts moved forward with sentencing, Andrew began to find a way to process his grief. Through art, he began to heal. He poured his emotions into drawing, channeling his pain and resilience into the pages of a comic book. Despite the horror he had endured, Andrew had saved his sister and shown extraordinary courage. On that tragic day, he embodied the strength and selflessness his parents had always shown him.
My dad, he made things look so easy. He was truly an amazing person.
Though Michael and Angie Hawkins Smith lost their lives, their final act was one of love, protecting their children above all else. On May 26, 2017, Andrew's 13th birthday, Pastor Keith was formally sentenced to life without parole. His betrayal, driven by greed and resentment, would never harm another soul again. Allied by a supportive and loving family, Andrew has begun a new chapter in life. Recently engaged, he carries with him the unbreakable bond of his parents' love, a guiding light that no tragedy can ever erase.
I've been told you're a spitting image of your dad. You look just like him. You act just like him. Naomi, she looks just like my mom. I'm very thankful for what I have. And in a sense, it's like I am living through my parents' life. My parents will always live on within me.
Do you think Pastor Keith's dual identity as a preacher and pawn shop owner was a red flag that went unnoticed for too long?
They have time in Andrew's bed are set appoint steady o less, transponing mile and go with. I mean, I love the purpose in the set was into the stage of the IOFO and the IONs and the IDIOs that. What would you have done in Andrew's place, just 9 years old, hiding in silence to protect your baby sister?
If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life crime stories that deserve to be heard. And tell us in the comments what part of this case shocked you the most. Winter 2017, Riverdale, Georgia. Just a 25-minute drive from the heart of Atlanta, Riverdale is a city quietly buzzing with ambition, a home to rising talents chasing dreams of success. Among them was 28-year-old Raheem Grant, known to many as Red Beezy. A charismatic musician and devoted father, Raheem lived much of his life in front of the camera, documenting his journey from childhood to the brink of stardom. Known throughout his community, he was a familiar face and a respected figure. In the studio, Raheem was a one-man powerhouse, writing, mixing, mastering, and producing entire projects with unmatched skill. His passion for music and dedication to his craft left a lasting impression on everyone he encountered. Then on the evening of December 29, 2017, Raheem Grant's promising rise came to an abrupt and tragic halt. That same night, a young detective received the call that would become the defining moment of his early career. At the time, Joshua Teskey was a detective with the Clayton County Police Department. The call came into the Criminal Investigation Division, what initially seemed like a routine homicide investigation. Teskey would soon discover, however, that the case was far more complex than it first appeared. John Gossert, a senior investigator with the Clayton County District Attorney's Office in 2017, recalls the moment clearly. A 911 call had come in. A woman, hysterical and bleeding, had shown up at a neighbor's doorstep with her young child. The woman was identified as Sierra Hart. With her was 3-year-old Angel, the daughter she shared with Raheem Grant. Sierra had sustained multiple stab wounds along her left leg, from the calf to just below the buttocks. Injuries so severe that first responders feared she might bleed out before reaching the hospital. She was rushed into emergency surgery. Meanwhile, as officers worked the scene, a neighbor alerted them to the upstairs apartment, Raheem Grant's residence, setting off a chain of events that would uncover a chilling narrative behind the violence. Responding officers arrived at the scene and immediately noticed a trail of blood leading away from the apartment. Upon checking the front door, they found it unlocked. Stepping inside, they were met with an eerie silence that filled the space. As they cautiously advanced through the entryway, they encountered a significant pool of blood at the threshold, an ominous sign of the violence that had occurred. Following the blood trail deeper into the apartment, the officers were led toward the bathroom. In the hallway that connected the bathroom to the bedroom, they discovered a body lying face down on the floor. Just steps away, the presence of recording equipment signaled that this was more than just a residence. It was also a home studio. It didn't take long for police to confirm the victim's identity, Raheem Grant, a beloved son, a devoted father, and a rising music artist, now the victim of a brutal and senseless act. The discovery would send shockwaves through his family, friends, and a community that had watched him chase his dreams with unwavering passion. Tony Bryson, Raheem Grant's father, remembers his son as kind, generous, and full of personality. While other kids watched cartoons, Raheem was drawn to music, always creating, always dreaming. His parents watched with pride as he grew into a devoted father and talented musician. But now the vibrant voice they once heard has been silenced forever. Tony recalls the call from Clayton County Police. At first, he assumed it was something minor, maybe a noise complaint. But then came the words no parent should ever hear. Raheem was killed. The unimaginable had become reality. For any parent, there is no greater pain than losing a child. The loss was devastating. Raheem Grant, full of life, talent, and dreams, was truly gone. Like so many, he had aspirations for the future. But his journey was cut tragically short. The music, the memories, the moments he shared so openly with the world had come to an abrupt end. But no one feels that loss more deeply than his young daughter, Angel. From the day she was born, Raheem balanced his career with fatherhood, seamlessly shifting between writing lyrics and capturing moments with his little girl. When he wasn't producing or posting online, he was with Angel, photographing her, playing with her, making memories. Nearly every image on his phone told the story of a father completely devoted to his child. Now questions linger. Did Raheem's openness, his constant presence online and in the public eye, make him vulnerable? And what of Angel's mother, Sierra Hart, who barely clung to life in a hospital room after suffering multiple stab wounds? Could she become the next victim? With no immediate witnesses and a chaotic scene at Raheem's apartment, investigators must turn to the evidence left behind. Was this the work of an intruder or something far more personal? There were no signs of forced entry. The door hadn't been kicked in, and nothing indicated a home invasion. This led investigators to believe the shooter had free access to the apartment, someone Raheem Grant likely knew and trusted. A rising figure in Atlanta's rap scene, Raheem was on the verge of a major breakthrough in his career. Could jealousy have played a role? Perhaps a rival artist or an obsessed fan crossed a dangerous line? At this point, only one person could provide answers: Sierra Hart. But as she lay hospitalized, battling severe trauma and physical injuries, her ability to speak remained uncertain. When Sierra finally regains consciousness and begins to share her version of events, the truth she reveals will send shockwaves through the city of Atlanta. It's now been 2 hours since Raheem Grant was found dead in his apartment. His rise to fame, destroyed. His role as a devoted father, cut short. The voice he once shared so boldly with the world, silenced forever. She said his heart had a long day. The words echoed as Sierra Hart, Raheem Grant's partner and the mother of his child, fought for her life in a hospital bed, unable to speak, unable to explain what happened. With Sierra sedated, investigators had no way to get immediate answers. At the same time, news of Raheem's death spread quickly. Audrey Washington, a reporter for WSB-TV Atlanta, recalls getting the call. A murder in Clayton County. Sierra had arrived at a neighbor's door, bleeding and incoherent. Police couldn't make sense of her words. Only 2 people had been in that apartment, Sierra and 3-year-old Angel. With Sierra unresponsive, investigators turned to their last resort, arranging a forensic interview with the only other possible witness, Raheem's young daughter. Although young Angel could speak, she was shy and overwhelmed. Understandably, she couldn't find the words to describe the trauma she had witnessed. In a matter of hours, the little girl had lost her father and watched her mother fight for her life in a hospital bed. Years before Angel was born, back in 2013, Raheem Grant and Sierra Harp shared more than artistic ambition. They shared a close bond. Sierra initially approached Raheem with hopes of helping him promote his music. She was kind, driven, and eager to build a better life for herself, having endured a difficult upbringing. Both Raheem and his family welcomed her with open arms, offering support and guidance. As they spent more time together, their relationship deepened. Within months, Sierra and Raheem became inseparable, and soon after, their daughter Angel was born. Sierra was captivated by Raheem's talent and charisma, qualities that also attracted the attention of music industry professionals. Rafael Capone, owner of Solace Album Studios, recalls meeting Raheem during that time. Back in 2013, Red Beezy recorded Oh Well. It was a breakout track, Capone noted. He was incredibly gifted, a natural in the studio. Raheem Grant wasn't just talented, he was electric. Full of life, energy, and passion, he produced his own beats and brought undeniable presence to every studio session. On the verge of a breakthrough, he was booking shows, landing features, and building a strong social media following. Those who worked with him knew music wasn't just a hobby, it was his calling. But just as his career was gaining momentum, his life was tragically cut short. Like many artists, Raheem documented much of his journey online. But for investigators, the story behind his death wouldn't be found in posts or algorithms. It would be uncovered through physical evidence. At the crime scene, detectives observed multiple wounds on Raheem's body, including injuries to his back and a fatal one to the top of his head. His final moments had been violent and brutal. As forensic teams collected evidence, including Raheem's cell phone, bullet casings, a knife, and other items from his apartment, they also turned their attention to a neighboring unit, hoping it might hold additional clues in unraveling the truth behind his murder. Among the evidence collected, one item stood out, a gun turned over by a neighbor. She claimed it belonged to Sierra, raising immediate questions. Was this the weapon used to kill Raheem? Where did it come from? Did the shooter bring it, or was it already inside the apartment? When investigators ran the serial number, the results were clear. The gun belonged to Raheem. A holster was later found on top of the refrigerator, confirming the firearm had been kept in the home. What remained uncertain was why the gun had ended up in Sierra's hands. Had she used it in self-defense? Or had the same person who stabbed her also pulled the trigger? Now out of surgery, Sierra was expected to survive, but her road to recovery had only begun. Detectives knew it could take days for her to mentally and emotionally process the trauma, enough to recount what happened. Meanwhile, Raheem's loved ones were left in limbo. 4 days passed before his body was released. On Tuesday, his family finally saw him, no longer the vibrant artist they knew, but a victim of brutal violence. It was in that moment they fully grasped the tragic reality. Raheem Grant had been murdered. Raheem Grant was gone. As his mother, Geraldine, prepared to lay her son to rest, Sierra Harp, after a week in the hospital, finally opened her eyes. This was the moment detectives had been waiting for. They needed answers. What had happened inside that apartment? How had Sierra survived? And most importantly, what did she remember? The truth, when it came, was staggering. After days of speculation, Sierra finally revealed what unfolded the night Raheem was killed. She admitted to shooting him. The confession stunned investigators. Sierra claimed she remembered firing at least once, but wasn't sure how many times. The mystery of who was solved, but why remained. Why would she shoot Raheem, the father of her child? Was it self-defense, a tragic accident, or something far more calculated?
Can you tell me exactly what happened?
I remember cooking dinner and him drinking and him taking 3 Xanaxes because I asked him not to. And when he doesn't take anything, he's fine, he's happy. And he took it anyway, so I knew to be on guard. And then he told me to go alone because he had to take care of some business. And I remember seeing a girl sitting on the couch.
Detectives now faced a new challenge, uncovering the motive behind an act that shattered so many lives. When detectives first heard there may have been a third person inside the apartment, it sparked hope for a new lead. But who was this mystery witness, and what did she see? According to Sierra Harp, this woman was present during the early moments of the altercation.
And he came in and he said something, and I said, I can't hear what you're saying. Your music is too loud, because he didn't want the girl to hear what he was saying. And then he hit me. And he slapped me and he started punching me.
She claimed that after Raheem called out to her from the living room, she stumbled and fell, dropping a knife in the process. Sierra alleged that Raheem then picked up the knife and began attacking her.
And I remember crying out for help because the girl was still in my apartment. And he kept saying, shut the F up, shut the F up. And I kept saying, he's stabbing me, please help.
As the situation escalated, the unidentified woman reportedly fled the apartment. Sierra claimed that Raheem became even more violent after the friend's departure, striking her and knocking off her glasses. Through a blur of blood and tears, she said she reached for a nearby gun.
I couldn't see anything. I just started shooting.
Sierra told investigators she had endured ongoing abuse and that she acted in self-defense. Her injuries were extensive, more than 20 stab wounds, many deep enough to be life-threatening. Her survival, doctors noted, was nothing short of a miracle. Now investigators had more than a confession, they had a motive. But the story was far from over. Unfortunately, in many domestic violence cases, the woman is often the victim, especially when attempting to leave a relationship. At first glance, Sierra Harp's account fit that familiar pattern. Her claims of self-defense aligned with what many experts recognize in abusive dynamics. Initially, Sierra was released and told she could return home. But for investigators, her story wasn't as straightforward as it appeared. Questions began to surface. Was there more to the shooting than the domestic abuse she described? One detail in particular troubled detectives. If Raheem had been attacking her, how did he sustain a gunshot wound to the top of his head? Raheem Grant was shot 6 times. In addition to the gunshot wounds, he had stab injuries on his forehead, shoulder, and near his chest. The sheer brutality of the attack told its own story. With such extensive trauma, investigators believed Raheem never stood a chance. Even if he had tried to defend himself or escape, the damage was too great. He was left completely powerless. Sierra's version of events wasn't aligning with the physical evidence, and for investigators, the priority was uncovering the truth. A potential breakthrough came in the form of a third person, an independent witness who might help piece together what really happened. According to Sierra, the woman present that night was Raheem's gym friend. She was quickly located and brought in for questioning. The witness stated she had simply come over to hang out. While Raheem and Sierra were in the bedroom, she recalled hearing Sierra raise her voice, yelling during an argument. Sensing tension, the woman said she sent a text at 10:26 p.m. and left soon after. The 911 call, however, wouldn't come in until nearly 15 minutes later, leaving a significant gap in the timeline and raising questions about what unfolded during that window. How did Raheem end up in a position to be shot in the top of the head? The severity of his wounds, both stab and gunshot, made it difficult to view the incident solely as self-defense. Investigators began to suspect that Sierra's story was incomplete, if not deliberately misleading. While no one was ready to declare her a cold-blooded killer, they also couldn't accept her as a purely innocent victim. To better understand Raheem's character and the nature of his relationship with Sierra, detectives turned to someone who knew him best, his mother. The police report stirred deep anger in Raheem Grant's mother. While she admitted her son wasn't perfect, she firmly believed he was not the kind of man to harm a woman. Fueled by grief and frustration, she felt compelled to defend his name. As detectives spoke with those who knew Raheem, a more personal portrait emerged, one of a dedicated father and driven artist. not just the rapper known as Red Beezy. To family and friends, the claim that he assaulted Sierra didn't make sense. He had a record deal on the table and too much to lose. But conflicting voices emerged. Some of Sierra's acquaintances hinted that she had her own aspirations for fame, raising further doubts. Now detectives were left to decide, was Raheem the man his loved ones knew, or the one Sierra claimed he was? In Atlanta, being romantically linked to a rising rapper can open countless doors: reality television, a music career, and public recognition. Sierra Harp had ambitions of her own, seeking both romance and opportunity, but Raheem Grant remained focused on his music career, and as priorities diverged, tensions grew. Still, Raheem knew he needed to maintain a civil relationship with Sierra, for the sake of their daughter, Angel. Aware of the volatility between them, his mother, Geraldine, gave him a crucial piece of advice: always record encounters that made him feel uncomfortable. It was a form of protection, his word against anyone else's. Raheem took that advice seriously. He recorded often, and Geraldine believed his phone could hold important answers. That phone, however, remained locked away in an evidence locker. With the legal process potentially taking months, investigators couldn't afford to wait. Desperate for answers, they turned their attention back to Sierra. It was a long shot, but one they had to take. Investigators reached out to Sierra Harp with a simple but critical question: did she know the passcode to Raheem Grant's phone? Surprisingly, she said she believed it was 0025G. When detectives entered the code, the phone unlocked immediately. It seemed almost too easy. As they scrolled through the device, one video stood out, recorded on December 29th, the night of Raheem's death. The footage was brought straight to the lieutenant. What they saw changed everything. It had been 9 weeks since Raheem's murder, and Sierra had consistently claimed self-defense. But the video told a different story, one that left investigators stunned. The recording began with Raheem filming himself, blood visible on his face. In the background, Sierra could be heard.
Y'all see this? Look at this knife. Y'all see all this shit? That Sierra Harp did to me. Y'all see this shit, right?
Really?
All right, hold up. Yep. Hey!
The first gunshot struck the bathroom mirror. The second hit Raheem, dropping him to the floor. Moments later, Sierra appeared on camera, picked up the phone, and stopped the recording. Raheem Grant had unknowingly documented his own final moments, and in doing so, left behind the truth. As detectives continued reviewing the contents of Raheem Grant's phone, they made a chilling discovery. There wasn't just one video. There were 3 more, each capturing the horrifying progression of that night.
Baby, I'm dead. Baby, stop, don't. All right, it's okay.
In the footage, Sierra grows increasingly agitated. Raheem, wounded and desperate, begins to plead for his life. In the background, the voice of their young daughter, Angel, can be heard. Raheem begs Sierra to let him kiss his daughter one last time. Sierra refuses. Then, in a burst of rage, she fires 2 more shots. Raheem's dying wish to hold his child was denied. Sierra continues speaking, becoming more emotional and enraged until she fires again.
You beat me! You abused me! Fuck you!
2 final shots. After that, there is only silence. No voice, no movement. Raheem is gone. What makes this discovery all the more haunting is that it was Raheem himself who recorded the entire ordeal. A man documenting his own murder, something investigators had only ever seen in fiction, never in real life. The videos on Raheem Grant's phone were more than evidence. They were his final testimony. In them, a dying man pleaded for his life, naming the person responsible for his death. It was devastating to watch, a man documenting his own murder. And for investigators, it left no doubt. This was not self-defense. Detectives invited Sierra Harp to the station under the pretense of continuing the investigation. She arrived willingly, in good spirits, unaware of what awaited her. But that would soon change. When the first video played, Sierra's expression shifted. Shock registered across her face as she watched herself through Raheem's lens. It was clear she hadn't anticipated the footage would resurface. She lowered her head, visibly defeated. She was then placed under arrest and informed she would be held at the county jail, awaiting trial for Raheem's murder. Meanwhile, Raheem's parents were shown the unthinkable, their son's final moments captured on video. His mother could barely speak as she watched the woman who had once been like family take her son's life. She couldn't bring herself to watch all the recordings. The pain was simply too much to bear. Murder. Not just any murder, but one of the most brutal and personal kinds. Every shot Raheem Grant took was felt deeply by those who loved him. As Sierra Harp and her legal team prepared a defense, lead prosecutor John Fowler readied himself for trial. "I always tell families the same thing," Fowler said. "The bad news is, I can't bring closure. The good news, I'll fight like hell for justice." At first glance, the video from Raheem's phone didn't definitively confirm or disprove Sierra's claims of self-defense. But prosecutors looked deeper, analyzing the footage frame by frame. What they found painted a far more disturbing picture. There were no prior domestic violence reports or arrests against Raheem, and as they dissected the footage, a new theory began to take shape, one supported by evidence. This wasn't self-defense. It wasn't the result of long-term abuse. Prosecutors now believed they had exactly what they needed to prove that Raheem Grant's death was intentional and criminal. This wasn't self-defense. It wasn't a case of long-term abuse. It was, as prosecutors saw it, stone-cold murder. While Sierra Harp's defense centered around claims of battered person syndrome, the district attorney's office uncovered a hidden truth within Raheem's videos. Sierra admitted to killing Raheem, but her legal team argued it was the result of years of abuse and fear for her life. At first glance, it sounded like a familiar domestic violence case. A young mother pushed to her limit, but the evidence told a different story, one that challenged her claims at every turn. To win this case, the prosecution knew it would come down to credibility. And while Raheem's music persona as Red Beezy had earned him fans, it now risked overshadowing the truth in the courtroom. For his parents, the trial was its own torment, watching their son's name and character questioned, knowing he was being accused of things he never did. With Raheem unable to defend himself, it was now up to his family and the evidence to speak for him. Sierra Harp maintained her story of long-term abuse, but when the prosecution presented their case, they brought more than claims. They brought undeniable proof. As the jury watched in the stunned silence, prosecutors revealed a critical detail. A single video frame capturing Sierra's pants leg rolled up. It showed a clear view of her tattoo, without the stab wound that appeared during her hospital stay. The implication was damning. Sierra had inflicted the injuries on herself after the fact. Raheem, seen lying motionless on the floor, posed no threat. There was no possibility he could have delivered those wounds. The defense's self-defense narrative collapsed. The video, painful, haunting, and unflinching, became the centerpiece of the trial. It was the moment Raheem identified his own killer, and the jury believed him. Sierra Harp was found guilty of murder. At sentencing, she made one last emotional appeal, attempting to draw sympathy. But the evidence had already spoken, and so had justice. Raheem Grant's star was rising, and those closest to him believed Sierra Harp couldn't bear to be left behind. In the end, he never made it out of that apartment alive. Sierra's past revealed a troubled childhood, instability, abandonment, and a longing for control. But on that December night, everything she had buried came to a violent boil. In court, she claimed she wasn't in her right mind and blamed alcohol for her actions. Tearfully, she apologized to Raheem's mother and pleaded for mercy. But to Geraldine Grant Bryson, the apology rang hollow. "She's not sorry, she's just sorry she got caught," she said. "If she had the chance, I believe she'd do it again." The judge agreed with the prosecution's assessment of the crime: cold, calculated, and merciless. Sierra Harp was sentenced to 125 years in prison. It wasn't closure, but it was justice. As Geraldine reflected, "It didn't make me feel good, but it made me feel that no one else would have to go through what I went through. Had the video never existed, the truth may have never come to light. Without it, there would have been little to prove what truly happened that night. In most cases, it's up to investigators to piece together a victim's story. But in this case, Raheem Grant told it himself. With his final act, he documented the truth, giving voice to his silence and delivering justice from beyond the grave. If Raheem hadn't recorded those final videos, do you think justice would have ever been served? Do you believe Sierra Harp's sentence was fair, or do you think there's more to her story than what the videos revealed? If this story moved you or made you think, subscribe and drop a comment below. Your voice matters, and we want to hear your thoughts on this powerful and tragic case.
Communications.
I'm a plumber and I'm on site for a job, and we're snaking a drain, and we've been pulling back. We probably pulled back about 10 pounds, 15 pounds of it looks like flesh type of stuff, meat, and we don't know what it is.
In December 2017, plumbers were called to a quiet Ontario neighborhood to address what seemed like a routine drain blockage. Equipped with their drain snake, they expected a quick and straightforward fix. However, as they worked to clear the pipes, they uncovered a horrifying discovery. Human remains gruesomely flushed down the plumbing system. What began as a mundane task quickly escalated into a nightmare, transforming the site into a full-fledged crime scene. Police swiftly descended upon the neighborhood, unraveling the sinister evidence of a heinous murder, leaving the entire community reeling in shock and disbelief. Rory H. was born in July 1999 in Oshawa, a quiet suburb in Ontario, Canada. From a young age, Rory was a bright, spirited child with a love for animals and the elderly. Outside of school, she thrived as an Army cadet, earning the Cadet of the Year title twice by the time she was 13. But things began to change when she entered high school. At just 14, Rory was offered crystal meth, a devastating first step into a years-long struggle with addiction. Rory came from a tumultuous family background. Her grandfather, Bernie Gindon, also known as Bernie the Frog, was the founder of Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club, once the second-largest biker gang in the world. As an outlaw biker, Bernie had served 22 years in prison for drug and assault convictions and was the father of 11 to 16 children, one of whom was Rory's uncle, Harley Davidson Guion. Harley, a member of the Hells Angels with a history of drug offenses, shared a close bond with Rory. Despite his rough exterior, complete with a tattoo boasting an undefeated prison fight record of 41 wins, he had a soft spot for his niece. In 2016, when Rory was 17, she lived with Harley and his family while he was under house arrest on drug charges. Rory's struggles weren't only tied to her addiction. Her mother, Shannon Dion, had reached out to the Children's Aid Society, hoping to get Rory the help she needed. While those services didn't provide the solution, Rory began turning her life around on her own. The last 6 months of her life showed promise. She had a boyfriend, Tony, her own apartment, and even went back to school. Harley supported her by giving her and her mother $1,000 to help with living expenses, but Rory also found a job to support herself. In August 2017, a pregnancy test confirmed she was expecting a baby. Rory, excited at the prospect of motherhood, was optimistic about her future. But tragedy struck soon after. On August 10, 2017, a fire broke out in her mother's home, injuring Shannon and killing her dog. The incident marked the beginning of a downward spiral for Rory. She was a familiar face at a local youth center called The Refuge, where staff noticed her recent relapse into drug use, though they also observed moments of improvement. In late August, Harley met with Rory and sensed something deeply troubling. She seemed cornered and secretive, avoiding sharing what was bothering her. The hug she gave him that day was unusually tight and filled with an unspoken finality. A heartbreaking embrace that felt like goodbye. Rory's life, filled with potential, joy, and heartbreak, was about to take a devastating turn that no one could have foreseen. On August 29, 2017, Rory Hosh's friend and her friend's mother brought her to the hospital. While the exact reason remains unclear, it's been suggested she was experiencing some sort of mental health episode. CCTV footage captured the trio sitting in the hospital's waiting room. Shortly after, the friend and her mother were seen leaving Rory alone to wait. Rory sat in the waiting area for about 15 minutes but left the hospital before being examined by a doctor. The surveillance footage shows her walking out on her own. Tragically, this would be the last time Rory H. was seen alive. When Rory failed to show up at the Refuge Youth Center for several days, her friends, guidance counselor, and family grew increasingly worried. Together, they raised the alarm. While some speculated she may have skipped town, falling back into old habits, those closest to her knew better. Rory was pregnant, in a stable relationship, and seemed committed to turning her life around. Her family was certain something was terribly wrong, and then their worst fears were realized. On September 11th, 2017, Rory Hash's story took a horrifying and tragic turn. It was a peaceful evening at Oshawa Harbor, where a grandfather and his 11-year-old grandson were enjoying a fishing trip on the pier. As they cast their lines, they noticed something unusual floating in the water. At first, it appeared to be a piece of trash, so the pair decided to hook it, aiming to clean up the lake. After about 30 minutes of effort, they managed to reel it in close enough to catch it with a net and haul it onto the pier. Initially, they thought it might be an animal, perhaps a chicken, based on its appearance. But as they examined it more closely, the grandfather realized the horrifying truth. "I think that's a body," he recalls saying. The item they had retrieved from the water was, in fact, a female torso. Police were immediately called to the scene. Upon examination, they determined the torso had clear signs of trauma and had been deliberately severed from the rest of the body. This grim discovery marked the beginning of a deeply unsettling investigation. Police took the torso away to be identified. They would likely reach out to other services to check for any unsolved missing person investigations. Lake Ontario is vast, and police couldn't rule out the possibility that the torso had been carried to Oshawa from elsewhere. The absence of the pelvis made identification even more challenging, and the condition of the torso left them unable to determine whether the victim had been pregnant. It wasn't until November 10th, nearly 2 months later, that DNA testing confirmed what Rory's family feared most. The severed torso belonged to Rory Hatch. Her missing persons case had now become a murder investigation. But how had her torso ended up in the lake? Who had killed her? And most horrifyingly, where was the rest of her body? There were no immediate leads. The lake had washed away any evidence that could point to the perpetrator, and Rory's final movements remained a mystery. How long had she been in the lake? How long had she lived after leaving the hospital waiting room? Whom had she met? And what had they done to her? For now, the police didn't have answers, and Rory's family settled into an agonizing wait, desperate for justice. The agonizing wait for answers stretched until December 28, 2017, when police were alerted to a grim discovery by an Oshawa plumber.
Communications.
I'm a plumber and I'm on site for a job, and we're snaking a drain, and we've been pulling back. We probably pulled back about 10 pounds, 15 pounds of it looks like flesh type of stuff, meat, and we don't know what it is.
The plumbers had been called to address a persistent pipe blockage in an upstairs rental apartment. The issue had lasted several days, frustrating both the upstairs residents and the tenant in the basement suite, Adam Strong, who had rented the space for over a decade. Strong had even asked his upstairs neighbors for a plumbing snake, claiming the blockage was caused by an inflated condom. Unconvinced, the neighbors decided to call in professionals. When the plumbers arrived, they traced the source of the problem to the basement apartment. Knocking on Strong's door, they were met with an overwhelming stench. Strong appeared tense, commenting on the vile state of the drains. As the plumbers worked to snake the pipes, they made a horrifying discovery, something that would forever shatter the quiet of the neighborhood. The police arrived shortly after the plumbers' shocking discovery. They quickly suspected that the material clogging the pipes was human flesh. The plumbers were horrified, not just by what they had found, but by the realization that they had spent hours working in close proximity to the man responsible. When officers knocked on Adam Strong's door, he opened it and without hesitation said, "The jig's up. It's a body." He was arrested on the spot. Even in the squad car outside, Strong remained unnervingly talkative. He chillingly confessed, "If you want the rest of her, she's in my freezer, and she's pretty defleshed." With growing dread, the officers opened the freezer in his basement apartment. Inside, they discovered severed body parts, including a human head, confirming the gruesome extent of the crime. The mounting horror of the scene revealed the full depth of Strong's depravity. On the neck was a tattoo that read, "The Word Alive," the same tattoo Rory Hashi had. These were, without a doubt, Rory's remains. An autopsy later revealed that she had suffered multiple facial injuries and 2 fractures. However, the exact cause of her death remained uncertain. Toxicology tests detected drugs in her system, but the quantity couldn't be determined. Investigators also considered the possibility that she might have been strangled or killed by blunt force trauma. Whatever the exact cause, it was clear that Rory had died during a brutal and horrific attack, leaving her family devastated and desperate for justice. He told the officers, "If you're looking for the rest of her, you'll find her in the freezer." When asked, "Is the person in that freezer Rory?" he seemed to anticipate the question. He knew he'd have to answer, acknowledging that these interrogations could go on for hours. When pressed, he admitted, "It can." It's true. The police didn't make much progress interviewing Adam Strong. Though he had previously been talkative, almost bragging about the human remains found on his property, he now offered little useful information. With no other choice, investigators returned to his apartment to search for more evidence. The scene inside was chaotic, cluttered, and disturbing. Among the mess, they uncovered restraining devices, adult toys, and weapons, including a hammer that later tested positive for Rory's DNA. They also found Rory's running shoes in a plastic bag, marked with what appeared to be blood spatter. Further investigation revealed bloodstains on the walls and baseboards leading into Strong's bedroom. The search uncovered more than just evidence of Rory's murder. Strong's online search history exposed a dark obsession with extreme gore and death, an interest that had clearly manifested in horrifying real-world actions. Most chillingly, they discovered an undetonated pipe bomb in the apartment, prompting the bomb squad to safely detonate the dangerous device. The apartment was a trove of sinister evidence, painting a chilling picture of Strong's depravity. Perhaps most damning of all, investigators found a specialty knife in Strong's kitchen drawer, a type commonly used by hunters for cutting and skinning animals. It was exactly the kind of knife that could have been used in Rory's dismemberment. When they tested the knife for her DNA, what they discovered took the case in a shocking new direction. The DNA didn't belong to Rory, it belonged to another victim, blowing the investigation wide open and revealing a potential pattern of violence far worse than anyone had imagined. The second victim was identified as 19-year-old Candace Fitzpatrick, born in 1989. Little is known about her life, but her tragic story bears haunting similarities to Rory's. Like Rory, Candace often spent time on the streets of Oshawa and struggled with drug addiction. Yet despite her challenges, Candace had a loving family who cared deeply for her and had been searching for her since she vanished in March 2008, nearly a decade earlier. Her DNA, found on the knife in Strong's apartment, brought long-awaited answers to her family, but also unveiled the horrifying depth of his crimes. Another missing woman from the Oshawa area at the time was identified as Candace Fitzpatrick. Her family had reported her disappearance to the Durham Regional Police Service, DRPS, in 2010, expressing concerns that she hadn't been seen since 2008. Candace was only 18 years old when she vanished. Reflecting on her loss, her father shared his thoughts. "I felt from the get-go that this was a seasoned person who had done this before. My daughter was tough, very tough, and she wouldn't have been an easy catch for anyone to handle. You know what I mean? So I knew he knew what he was doing." His words underscored the chilling, calculated nature of the predator they were dealing with. Now, at last, they had a clue about what had happened to Candace Fitzpatrick, and it was nothing good. Her DNA on the knife confirmed her tragic connection to Adam Strong, but there was no trace of her body. Investigators turned their focus back to Strong. At first, he seemed more willing to talk, though only about Rory. His demeanor was chilling, revealing a callous and cruel attitude toward her death. He openly described the dismemberment process, casually admitting he had started on Christmas Eve 2017, because in his words, that was when the neighbors were away. His disturbing lack of remorse painted a horrifying picture of a man completely detached from the humanity of his victims. On being questioned, Strong confirmed, "So, the 24th is when you started?" He replied, "As you said, Christmas Eve, yes." When asked if he carried out the dismemberment while the remains were frozen or partially defrosted, he chillingly responded, "Completely defrosted." Adam Strong had already been charged with committing an indignity to a dead body, and he believed that as long as the questioning remained focused on the practicalities of what he had done after Rory's death, he was safe from further charges. However, the more he spoke, the more detectives were able to push him for incriminating details, building a case that would allow a judge to infer what he had done to Rory while she was alive. Despite hours of questioning, Strong never gave a full confession to either murder, neither Rory's nor Candace Fitzpatrick's. He did, however, admit to knowing Rory, claiming they had dinner together and that she had visited his apartment multiple times. He confessed to dismembering her body after her death and even expressed surprise that her torso had been found in the lake, remarking that he didn't think she should have floated. He described his months-long process of disposing of her remains as mere procrastination, a sentiment he extended to his possession of the knife bearing Candace's DNA, admitting he should have disposed of it and blaming his laziness for being caught. He also acknowledged knowing Candace, adding to the evidence against him. By November 2018, a year after Rory's torso was identified, this web of physical evidence and his admissions was enough for police to charge Adam Strong with both murders. Prosecutors faced a significant challenge. Without Candace's body and no confession to either killing, they had to focus on painting a picture of Strong's character and actions. Born in 1972, Strong was 45 when the plumbers discovered Rory's remains. He worked as a gas station attendant and occasionally as a film set security guard. Little is known about his early life, though he claimed he had a really bad childhood, blaming it for his actions. They are my actions, but I don't think I would have made those actions had I been nurtured, he told investigators. Prosecutors called two women to the stand who had been in relationships with Strong in his 20s. Both testified to his troubling behavior. One described consensual bondage and choking, but the other recounted a frightening and non-consensual experience, saying she had feared for her safety. This testimony painted a damning picture of Strong as aggressive, cruel, and calculating. The defense attempted to argue that the women might have overdosed and that Strong panicked, disposing of their bodies to avoid blame. However, the severe head injuries found on Rory told a different story, undermining this narrative. Strong did his best to delay the trial, which occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic and was conducted primarily via video link. He often refused to cooperate, claiming exhaustion and refusing to meet with his lawyer. "I'm tired, I want to go to bed," he once complained. His arrogance and lack of remorse did little to endear him to the court. Finally, on March 16, 2021, after years of delays, Adam Strong was convicted of first-degree murder for Rory Hatch's death and manslaughter in Candace Fitzpatrick's case. The murder conviction carried an automatic life sentence. In July 2021, seemingly resigned to his fate, Strong admitted to a prison guard the location of Candace's remains. He led police to an intersection in Oshawa, where they recovered her body. After more than a decade, Candace's family was finally able to lay her to rest, bringing a measure of closure to their long and painful ordeal. Adam Strong's sentence is expected to be especially dangerous for him. Rory Hatch's family's connection to biker gangs, including her grandfather Bernie Gindin, founder of the notorious Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club, means Strong could face retribution on the inside. One convict reportedly remarked, "You can't kill the granddaughter of somebody connected to the Hells Angels. It all gets down to that. You can't kill a biker's granddaughter and get away with it." Despite Strong's conviction, many questions remain unanswered. How did he meet Candace Fitzpatrick and Rory Hatch? Why did he murder them? The prosecution theorized that these were crimes of opportunity, suggesting Strong encountered both women on the streets and kidnapped them. But Strong himself has never revealed the full truth. What remains most unsettling is the decade-long gap between Candace's murder in 2008 and Rory's in 2017. The possibility of other crimes committed during that time lingers, leaving a chilling question. What else might Adam Strong have done in those years, and are there more victims yet to be discovered?